Why does Ecuador look more like? I guess it's in the northern hemisphere,
But the
slightly.
thing is, that some of these
On
photos,
the
like
equator.
you gotta, they gotta put like where south is, right? Because you could take a picture like upside down and be like, oh look, they gotta give you the
Yeah.
Right.
orientation of the photographer.
Yeah. What time of the day you're taking it? Because right.
It's so hard to find those photos too. Like, not a lot of people do analemas like in those three spots, and then to ask them like what direction they do. And I remember looking up for this image, and I couldn't even find if this was a real image or not. It was like CGI, maybe.
Yeah, I saved that. It's a good one.
Well, they
So I'll post the
claim
link of the video that
that
I'm talking about. Go ahead, you're good.
they claim
Sorry.
that they have a midnight sun for 6 months out of the year in Antarctica,
Yeah.
which is insane.
And
So yeah, I posted the video. If you go to I got this from the guy last night. One of the new guys. I forgot his name. But if you go to an hour and 20 minutes, that's where the good part starts.
Do you think it's the analemma? The reason it looks larger and it's always at the December time is, I know a lot of people say because it's lower in the sky, but is it possible it's higher in the sky, taking a further arc, and then when it gets to the center, it's more low in the sky, and that's why it's so hot in the northern hemisphere, like Death Valley and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's if listen, I think it was like a toroidal circuit that does help explain this high and low perspective as well as the angular size change.
Yo.
Yo,
Hey.
Yo.
Okay. Very, very big show coming up. Okay. So
we
that's good
know.
news. Good news. We also got bad news. Bad news is McToon is also going to be on the very big show. Okay.
Rogan?
So don't ask me what the show is, please. Okay. It's a debate. So someone said something about McToon's doing these experiments in Antarctica, and he came in here to discuss them. And that obviously this is like the globe narrative, that instead of them being addressed specifically, there was like an argument about it not really being an experiment and not, stuff like that. So does anyone know what these supposedly are? I mean, I can try to look into them tonight, but obviously I'm pretty busy. I need to know. It's tomorrow. So
Well, McToon's going to be on Gem Pandas in about an hour or 2 hours.
But yeah, specifically, I'm posting the link. Yeah,
something.
You're kind of roboting. I'm posting the link in chat. It's the one that he sent. In terms of very quickly, specifically address what he said is that he's doing the basic he did the basic category error that a lot of like globe people do, in that there is just a singular globe understanding, globe explanation for everything, in that it's very homogenous in view. And on his website, when he's looking at, here are the experiments that he's going to do, here's the globe prediction, here's the flat prediction, like a lot of them showed, oh, the sun is 3,000 miles up, which is not a flat earth prediction. That's like an Eric Dubé prediction. So that is,
I heard something about like the distance between longitude.
Yeah, that's what he said. He's going to have 9 flights or something, and at each stop he was going to take these measurements, and he gave a prediction for the flat Earth model and a prediction for the globe.
Okay, so like just you guys tell me if this is what it is, because I mean, based on that little information, I can pretty much put together what he says. Okay, okay. So like on a globe, you go to the equator, and that's like the maximum distance between longitude lines. And then you go past the equator, the longitude lines start to converge back towards each other to where they meet at the South Pole. And it's symmetrical, right? It does the same above and below the equator. On the typical flat Earth prediction, you get to the equator and the distance between the longitude lines continue to increase the further out you go. And so he's obviously going to say that the distance, the globe Earth prediction, and he's going to look at the longitude spherical coordinate system and say, this is the distance, it's getting smaller and smaller. the further south you go. And then he's going to say on like the Gleason map, I'm sure this is what the distance would be on the flat Earth between your longitude lines. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so because he said the AE map.
That's
Okay.
exactly
That's
it. Yeah, I just got back. I just jumped. I just got back here, but so maybe I didn't hear the whole combo. But yeah, he actually said that in here when he came in here a few weeks ago or a week ago or whatever. That's it. Yeah, because he came in here like basically like he like showed his website and he was like, you know, and then he was streaming on his channel or whatever. But he showed his website that like you're talking about MC Toon, where he has like the list of his like predictions or whatever. And then he explained that one. I thought there were some actual missing gaps in how he explained it, but I just got back and I was intently listening. So I'm wondering if what you've heard from like what your thoughts are, like because
Well, what I
he
heard was
described
that
it was not. Yeah.
the flat earthers basically just said that like someone jumped in from in here on the flat earth side and just said like that's not a real experiment or something. So does anyone know like how he how did he say he's going to measure the distance between longitude?
It's number 8 in that document Yasuke sent.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
driving, so I don't.
Okay, yeah, I go read it
Number
off.
8. I'll screenshot it.
Yeah, if you could read it off too, that'd probably be good.
He wants to use a laser rangefinder with 1,500 meters or 1,500 feet of range and somehow extrapolate the actual lines of longitude from that.
Yeah, that's actually
So okay, so he's going to have to use GPS.
1,500 yards, I think, though.
Right. Yes, he's going to use GPS with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the rebuttal obviously is that the GPS system is a spherical coordinate system that assumes the very globe he's claiming to prove. So he's gonna use like a GPS tracker, and he's gonna say, "Okay, here's my location right now, and now I'm gonna measure over here 1,500 yards. And I'm gonna go over here with my GPS tracker. Oh, look, it matches the longitude prediction of the globe." Is that what he's saying? Okay.
Well, this is what
Pretty much, and then extrapolate, and then extrapolate that out in an assumptive manner to claim that because of that, you know, short little laser rangefinder and how that correlates with the GPS, that you can then just extrapolate it out and then claiming that that's the virtual measurement.
Yeah, that's what, like, yes. Like, obviously,
That's what it is, dude.
Dude,
Virtual
what
measurement.
the hell? Before you even get into the fact that he's just strawmanning flat Earth with like the globe flattened map, as if everyone claims that's definitively true, and then taking those measurements as actual or whatever those distances, like it doesn't prove the accuracy of the globe model at all to use GPS and then say, "Hey, look, the GPS tracker says that where I'm at matches the GPS." Okay, because the GPS. This is so weird. This is like one of his big home run experiments, supposedly for Antarctica, because he's admitted to Jaren, although reluctantly and basically was forced to do so, that of course the Earth could be flat, and then you could try to map it out like a globe and create a GPS coordinate system, assuming it's a globe, and basically cook the books, even though it's actually flat. Right.
See, he offered anyone can give me if I'm doing it wrong. He put that out there, so and then conferred when no one really said anything. I take that is how it is.
Okay. Well, yeah. He also typically says stuff like, "Unless you can replace it and give me another answer, then I'm correct." So but yeah, obviously which
everyone being quiet, I assume I'm correct.
Yeah, it's also stupid. But like obviously the answer is just that though. Like someone should just say, "What? You're just like begging the question and reifying the model, affirming the consequent with the very GPS spherical coordinate system that you're claiming to prove, right?" Because the GPS coordinate system, it's like, for example, say the Earth is flat and you're flying around on a flat Earth and you're using GPS to track you. The GPS is going to take the information of where you're at, the signals or whatever they're getting. Let's just say you're getting actual signals. They're going to run it through the spherical coordinate system and then give you the final output based on that model, right? It conforms to that model. So that isn't proof of the globe at all. That's stupid. Does anyone know?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on that rebuttal. I mean, the way that all went down is that like Duffy had DM'd me, and then McToon DM'd me like right around the same time, like I had mentioned that, and then like they both said they wanted to come on or whatever. So then when McToon said he wanted to come on, I mean, I'm always reluctant every time he DMs me to want to come on. But I mean, he has been actually fairly cordial when he's come here in the past. So I figured, but this time he really wasn't. It was, it was not the same. He went into all of his old stuff, it seemed. And I was kind of away. I was only like able to listen. I wasn't really at my mic, and it got a little bit dumpster fiery there. But nonetheless, but at the beginning of it was chill. And so when he said he wanted to come and like kind of get like, you know, people's prediction ideas and stuff and talk about equipment stuff for Antarctica. So obviously I was like, all right, well then that means it could even have more productivity since Witsit's actually going on the trip and stuff to see what McToon's up to. So yeah, and then when he came in, like, and then he made like a whole like the video on his website. It says like he used the word flurf. It's like flurf predictions or something, and then it's got like the Earth Awakenings logo. I don't really like that he put that together like that, but nonetheless, whatever. That's him. But anyways, and then when he came in, yeah, he went through his website. He's got a thing on there, and this was one of his main things, yeah, that he brought up. Now you just gave a rebuttal for it, and that is definitely understandable. The thing is, when he first came in though, it didn't seem like it was really, he even said, he's like, oh, this isn't a debate. Although later it got all debatey and crazy. But earlier, so it was kind of more like show and tell style. So yeah, if anyone goes back, listens to the recording, I basically just kind of was, because when he said it once, I was like, wait, can I get that? Can I ask, you know, could you repeat that basically? And I asked him to like, and then I asked a few questions. So you'll hear me on there just like asking him questions. And then he was like, and then I just kind of said, okay, thanks. I was just asking, you know, because if it wasn't really a debate, it wasn't really a thing to rebut, we didn't really go into it, but I definitely made, you know, was wanting to understand exactly what he said. And the way he worded it actually was kind of conflicting, because the thing is, when he first said it, I pointed out, I was like, oh, so you're just extrapolating this? I was like, it's an assumption based on the G. I was already starting to go into it, and then he got kind of almost like, no, wait, and then he started going into a different thing with it. And then when he repeated it the second time, he was like omitting something. Anyway, so it would have taken more to like dissect, but yeah, it's definitely an extrapolation based on GPS and a 1,500-yard rangefinder.
Okay. Does anyone know anything else he's saying? Okay, so I heard something about like the magnetic field. Did he say anything about that?
Yeah, so this actually was the coolest thing that I heard him. Well, let me respond.
Batman suit. He's wearing a Batman
All right, bro.
suit.
Hold on, bro. I got you. We're having a real stream right now, though. I know. That's funny, the Batman joke. Okay, I got you. I'm not trying to shut you down. I'm just sorry. Okay, but I was just wanting to respond to that. Like on the topic. This is the thing that was actually the most interesting, and I actually do think is interesting. And one of the things I actually do want to see as results, just because it's cool, is he actually said he bought a magnetic dip compass. And he said he paid a lot of money for it. He pulled it out on the stream, like when he was when he was on here. He didn't have his video shared on here, but I looked at his video on his channel or whatever, and he pulled it out. And he's like, it was very expensive. I mean, it might have been a couple hundred. I'm not saying it's like tens of thousands, but yeah, they are probably somewhat expensive. Like they're not like $20. Anyways, and he said it has a case for it and all that. And he pulled it out, and it looked like my understanding of what they are and all that. And so, yeah, so he basically bought a magnetic dip compass, which allows you to measure like the vertical magnetic field instead of only the horizontal. So it gives you the actual vertical field lines. So like in a toroidal field, it would be expected that there would be like, you know, in the center, and then on the outer, there would be the dipping down. But on their globe, it would as well. So like the claim is that the magnetic field vertically does that dip effect as you go to the North Pole or the South on the Earth. And so it's kind of, that's the coolest thing, is that he actually may be bringing, you know, it looks like he's going to be bringing his magnetic dip compass to get the vertical field lines. So that's one of them. And I thought there might be something. Well, I think what he's trying to say is that debunks. He tried to say the toroidal thing, but then he wrote that off for some reason, because he was saying the field lines would have to go into the ground and you'd have to verify they go straight down at some point. I don't know. He tried making, I'd have to go double listen to it. But yeah, I'm trying to now just at the end of this whole long thing, I know I've talked for a long time, but I'm just saying like we could talk about that. But there's there's his two predictions. It's on his website. Basically that the globe would have the vertical lines, and he's trying to say that on a planar Earth, it would not, that the lines would never come down like that. And then he said something that toroidal, he already had like a pre-rebuttal where he tried to like strawman a toroidal thing, and then we didn't really get into it in too much more detail.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Because obviously the globe claims that the magnetic field is just like crazy down there, and it's not actually like symmetrical or anything, right? So I don't know, like the magnetic pole isn't at the geographic South Pole in the globe model.
I mean, like the
So
claim is essentially with a
Yeah.
magnetic dip compass that like right at the equator you would have like it would be like completely level as.
yeah, like I'm not worried about.
Are you sure you
So
understand the deep?
Hold on, go
that
ahead.
was brilliant timing, brother. Um, like the when it comes to the debate, I'm not tripping about that because it's always the same thing. Like whoever defends the globe, they just deploy tactics. And like I know all the tactics now, so I'm not worried about that. And if he makes it like some personal vendetta thing, it's just gonna look really bad on him to the audience. Not worried about that. And I'm much more interested in just using the airwaves that we normally don't have to just actually lay out our position, like even from a meta perspective. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
only, yeah, I try. So normally I'm like, I don't want to fully underestimate someone or whatever. And I go look into them a little bit. And then what always happens is I go debate them and I'm just like, why did I feel like I need to prepare? Right. It's like, we don't get anywhere close to like substantive conclusions. It's all tactics. It's all straw men. So yeah, just in this situation, I guess it's better I'm somewhat familiar with these little new narratives because I wouldn't know. Because I'll tell you this too. You guys remember the whole thing with the attorney? And like, he started running this narrative that he thought he caught me lying about having an attorney look at the contract, and they're all saying, see, really, Witsit knows that the Earth is not flat, and he's a liar, and he's grifting, and so he has to find a way to get out of Antarctica because he knows they're going to see the 24-hour sun, and it's going to ruin his grift, so he has to find some excuse to get out of it. So he's just saying, oh, well, my attorney looked at the contract, and it wasn't legit, so he could have an excuse to get out of it. And so he runs this whole narrative with all his audience, and then we don't have to go all back through that, but long story short, so he was like so confident for some reason that I was lying. Well, we found out later why, because I kind of walked it back a bit in Discord because my attorney said not to really tell everyone that I was fully working with him yet because it gives you somewhat of a tactical advantage in negotiation. So anyway, he's like, I'll pay 5 billable hours of Witset's attorney because he thought he didn't exist, and he was like exposing me and proving I was a liar or whatever. And then I just ignored him. And he kept doing it. I kept ignoring him. And he kept sending people to me saying, oh, our Mattoon said you're scared. He's offering you money, bro. It's just free money. Like, da 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 da. And so I'm getting like just harassed. And I'm like, I don't even want to take this dude's money. This is stupid. Keep ignoring it. Keep getting harassed, demanding it, tracking me down, even telling you. I think people in here at
He
least.
came in here. He came in here one day, and in the text chat, he's like, "Does anyone know who's Witsit's lawyer is? If you could please give me his information." And I thought he was like doing some doxing stuff, I'm like, "What is he?" And I reread it twice, and I did delete the message, and I was like, "Bro, that's not really like." He literally came in here asking for like private details of like your lawyer. So obviously, like that was at least means to delete that or whatever, and ask him not to do that kind of thing. And then that was at the very beginning. That was the first I ever heard of it. Is that he came in here, with like this like whole message that was like, and it was like tagging everyone or whatever. I mean, you can't like he didn't have the permissions to actually notify everyone, but you know what I mean. He was tagging it like, does anyone have So he was
And
asking for
acting like this generous offer, but really it was just this like conniving, deceptive thing or whatever. But anyway, so I did, of course, actually have an attorney. I didn't lie about it. He wouldn't leave me alone. So eventually I bring my attorney into it. And I said, dude, once I bring my attorney in on it, you're going to pay him. Okay. And I'm like,
just on the principle
just
at that point. Yeah, I mean, that's
He's
yeah,
always
funny.
trying to catch you in a lie, dude, and he's always failing. You know what I'm saying? He when it comes to this subject, it turns him dishonest, man. I think it's the subject itself. I don't think he's intentionally a dishonest man, but they make the same claims over and over and over. I think it's just a debate. But yeah, he tried to catch you in a lie because he's obsessed with making you look bad, and he turned around and made himself look bad.
It's like it's his
Well, that's
job or
another thing
something.
with with like how creative they are with these like claimed lies that I say. In my opinion, it just like shows the way that they think. Like they come up with super layer deceptive lies because my mind doesn't even work like that. So when they're like, really, when he said and, he meant or, and it was like a 7-layer deception where if you go to his video from 5 years ago, if you look at 3 minutes and 27 seconds, like there's weird, he's really lying and da, 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 da. So I always ignore it. I guess long story short, to expedite this here is I did get the attorney involved. He obviously was real. He's like, it should be easy to email me. Yeah, everyone knows my email. So my attorney emailed him an official invoice PDF of billable hours with his official law firm. And then he's like, "Oh, I need it in the mail." I'm like, "Why?" Like, "Don't you have a printer?" He's like, "It's
Yeah, that's stupid,
2024." He's like,
dude.
It's 2024. Who has a printer?" And it's like, "Yeah, it's 2024. Who mails things in with physical paper?" Like,
Yeah, doesn't think,
so
dude. He makes that comment and doesn't think, and then says, "Who's got a printer in 2024?" But then he wants you to freaking print it out and mail it to him. Like, bro, listen to yourself, man. He's off the chains, man.
But really, you have to understand it. Like, so he said that because was getting off on the idea that, like, yeah, obviously I'm only doing this for a different reason. I don't actually need it in the mail. And the reason was because he thought if I was lying that he could get us for mail fraud. So now we're talking about, like, he actually wanted to try to get me and an attorney in trouble for a felony. He wanted to get us to send it in the mail or whatever. But of course, it doesn't matter because no one was lying. So he sends it in the mail. Then it gets lost in transit for a couple days. But Mattoon has the tracking, and then it gets there pretty shortly, like October 4th or whatever. And Mattoon just doesn't say anything. So then I just forget about it. We let it breathe a little bit. My attorney asked me about it. I'm like, let me go check. I'm like, okay, yeah. So it got there on this date or whatever, and he just hasn't said anything. So then I reached back out to him. So it'd been like a month after he got it. He was just gonna not say anything, right? Once he saw, like, oh, this is obviously real. Because he's the liar, and he's not gonna keep his word, and he's not gonna want to
Yeah,
pay
he's
it, right?
absolutely the liar. He
Well,
thinks
it's
that now that
hold
you
on,
said
Brian.
it, it just goes away. Like, no way, man. We need to bring it back up. If not you, one of us. It don't just go away since you've satisfied his claim of you being a liar.
Well, it's a
And maybe
really
I'll stamp the liar comment as like pending, I guess, right? Because I don't, Gio does make a good point that, like, that's an intense accusation or whatever, even though he has provably lied about me like 400 times and slandered me 1,000 times and stuff. But it doesn't matter. Like, anyway, it's like
yeah,
he
but
doesn't.
you have evidence and proof of that.
Yeah,
So
like he doesn't have intention of paying it. And so, like, that's a lie, right? Like, if you're going around telling everyone, like, oh, I'm going to pay it, but really the whole time you just thought it didn't have you, it doesn't matter. So then I'm trying to make it fast, but okay. So I was like, what's going on, bro? Like, you got it in the mail. First he sent you the actual PDF invoice, then you moved it over because thought you were going to get like a mail fraud charge on us or something. You got it in the mail. Now you're not responding. What's going on? Just look, I know it sucks, but you were really arrogant. I tried to let you out of it. I tried to warn you that I wasn't lying. I even like kind of laughed when you brought it up. I'm like, you really think I'm lying with that? Like, I'm telling you right now, I'm not lying. I 100% have an attorney. I 100% sent it to him. That's all true. He's like, oh, I mean, before this date. I'm like, yes, that's correct. Like, the very day I got it, I sent it to my attorney. Please, just let it go, dude. And he was like, no. Just kept doubling down and making the whole thing publicly. So at that point, he forced my hand to like react in a way. So I'm like, I was like breaking that down to him. I'm like, you did all this, and I gave you a warning. And so it's like, at this point, you need to just like bite the bullet and be a man of your word. You did it. You should maybe look at this as an opportunity to realize that your behavior is kind of ridiculous, as like a learning experience or whatever.
Not logical, man.
So
well,
then
the
he ends
thing.
up responding and he says, have your attorney or have the receivable payments department of his law firm contact me. So it moves the goalpost again, right? I'm like, what? So then I just reach out to my attorney and I tell him what he says. He's like, okay, I'll reach out to him. So then he reaches out to him directly, and then McToon responds and says, so I've told Austin that I'm gonna put a pause on our issues and the history between us. I'm putting a pause on all of that until after the trip. So I'll come back and address this after that. So that was his last excuse to just put it off and not pay for it, right? So then
Wow.
eventually I emailed him and I'm like, dude, I'll break down everything that happened. And I'm like, and now you're just like lying again because the reason you're not paying it has nothing to do with you nobly and morally being above like this toxic beef or history or putting a pause on it. You're currently in the process of making live streams, a series of live streams slandering me. So like if you're putting a pause on it, then how come just 2 days ago you uploaded like the third video in a series of videos with my name in the title and continually slandering her, right? And he just didn't reply. And so like that's kind of like there's so much swarming around all of this, you know? Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well,
So
let me
it's
just
like
say one
I'm
thing.
trying to rise above that in terms of the show. So
Yeah. Well, for sure. Dude, but the whole thing about all that you just went through is that the thing is that if he pays or doesn't pay at this point, they both look very poorly upon his integrity. And he loses money if he pays it. But it's like both of them look bad. But then it's sort of like if he pays it, there's a little bit of a string of something positive there, because he did stick to his word and actually the money itself would actually mean something in some way, and then you would get compensated for your time really for the not only the harassment and everything else, but also just your actual time as well. So like that's the only way that he could like slightly make it right. But even that still doesn't solve all the other integrity issues. So it's like at this point, like it's because it's like he called you out, he was wrong about that, and then then all of these steps, and then if he also doesn't pay it, that's like a double negative. If he pays it, it kind of looks negative, but then if he pays it, it shows that he was also wrong, and that his what I mean. Then it confirms his claim of you lying was wrong. So it's like, dude, that's like a web that he just can't get out of. So it would make sense like just to delay it, if that's what he's
yeah, I
doing
guess.
now.
Yeah, I
If
see what you're
that's what
saying.
he's doing. I mean, I'm not saying it makes sense in integrity. I'm saying if that's where he's at and he doesn't even want to have to like take an L right now, then that would be, I mean, whatever. L is as far as that goes. I mean, it's like, it's a type of an L, I guess, but it's an L of
I mean, what's so
integrity.
funny is like I'm actually not getting any of the money. It's not like so I'm not even getting any of that. I feel like he assumes like actually my attorney's going to give me the money or give me some of like a. I don't think so. We have no agreement like that at all. Like he's just supposed to pay my attorney.
But he's paying it
And
instead of you. So it is,
That's irrelevant.
well, you would have to pay it if he didn't pay, right? So he is helping you in that way,
yes,
technically.
but obviously, like me and my attorney work out agreements, like we're friends. So anyway, but yeah, like the services would be like I would compensate him for the services,
Yeah.
and like always. So anyway, I mean, I guess you were saying, but obviously this is what I found to be very wild is when I was reading the comments and I'm like, yo, guess like because of McToon paid or whatever, they're like everyone was calling me a liar even when he was like in here and see, I'm a liar, you're not telling the truth, you didn't actually send it or McToon would have paid it. So everyone truly believes he does have integrity. He's able to spin this narrative, and I guess if you just watch his show, it's similar. Like if you just watch FED, you would think I'm like the worst person ever, and like all these people like truly believe that, oh, if it was a real attorney that I really talked to and too much wrong, that he would have just paid it for sure and it was a genuine offer and all this stuff. And I'm like, that was the craziest part for me. And so adding that into what you're saying, I think he is in a tricky spot, right? Because he doesn't want to pay the money and admit he was wrong about the whole thing. But he's kind of spun this narrative that he
had
I
that
don't know,
opportunity.
he does
He
have
had
integrity.
that opportunity, and he passed up on it, and continued to call you a liar, and all these things he's accusing you of lying, dude. I'm gonna make a video of him doing the same thing. I'm gonna give a couple examples of each one where it like for example, like if he's all talking about lying, like he plays in clips you in debates where you're talking about refraction. Well, refraction is Flat Earth's method of why we see obstruction, and when we see reverse obstruction, that's our method. Their method. So when we're talking about the globe, it's different. It's Earth curve and refraction. So they're starting to pull other freaking things out of the pile, of what can other variables is the word I'm looking for. They're trying to use other variables. Refraction is the flat Earth's number one and only main variable of what we're seeing in the distance when we do see obstruction. But that's just one example where I could show him doing the same thing. He cherry picks parts of it to make you seem like a liar, but he had his chance to drop it and let it go, and he didn't do that, man. He doubled down and then he tripled down. And the worst thing to do to me, if I were you, is to completely let it go. Talking about it now is good, and see how he responds. But I'll put something together for you, whether you want to play it or not, I'll leave that in your hands. But I'll put something together of what he's accusing you of lying, where he does the same thing way more often and way worse. I'll let you be the judge, man.
I thought
Oh,
everybody
so this is
saw.
the thing. I
Oh,
tried to
sorry.
actually. This is what's so crazy. I actually tried to help him out. I was like, bro,
I,
bro, 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 bro. Like, you're
I
wrong. Just let it go.
I thought everybody saw his true colors back when he tried to do like some entrapment of mail fraud on you, like that he thought he was going to get away with it or something. I thought that's when everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's a dick. Like he's an ass."
No, clearly not. They're still defending him, and
That's
so
crazy.
yeah. But it's all good. So, and I'm just pointing out. Obviously, there's all this history there. And I really, so at first I was like salty because I'm like, dude, this is a big opportunity, just like in terms of truth. I mean, a big audience that wouldn't normally hear all this to hear it. And I was like, it's going to be totally tainted by that. But there's actually another side of it where it's like, okay, well, also people can just see like the kind of behavior on the other side, the type of tactics that are, employed from the other side.
Nobody sees that part though, man. That's the problem. We've seen it, but nobody else has seen it. And any of his people ain't seen it. Very few, anyway. So
Yeah, but
that's
the
the mental.
audience of the
That's
show
what
I'm
holds
going
back.
on, the audience of the show I'm going on, like they're not like, dude, like if you go watch his channel, he like obsessively slanders me. It's like a channel about me in a way, and like the normal person would just think that's very weird, right? Like, they would expect to see the two guests and then go look at their content and be like, oh, okay, this is what this person covers, but they're gonna see this like weird obsessive guy, like middle-aged guy that's like obsessed with quote unquote flat earthers around the clock and like obsessed with some of them specifically, and it's like he said this one time 7 years ago, and it's just weird. So I think that
As
that's like a
long as
win.
you,
I think it's a
as long
win.
as you stay calm and freaking cool, man. There's no. He'll look like an idiot if you
That's
Maybe
what I'm
just
saying.
McToon.
chill and you don't spiral. Then they'll be like, why the hell? Why the hell is he so against this guy? Like he doesn't seem like he's
Yeah, and
freaking overly retarded or like just spazzing
It wouldn't
out.
hurt. It wouldn't
well,
hurt to
and the
have something
fact that
prepared just in case.
he's going on the Antarctic trip, he kind of sort of slid his way in like right at that timing. Just that alone, like it would. I guess I would be curious to hear your thoughts are on this the film producer guy that's now going. I don't know if you already mentioned that or have talked about it. I'm sure you've talked about it with others and stuff as well. Yeah, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. But either way, like the fact that MC Toon is going just means that there could be various possible media things in the future after it and stuff, depending on what kind of media coverage it gets or whatever. But yeah, so it's sort of like the fact that he's going, it's just to where like whether they have all of you guys on a show or something in the after it or something on various different things or whatever it is. So like so dude, it's kind of it almost seems like, I mean, as much as you're going to be involved with it, then you are kind of involved with him for that reason. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to be at all, which normally you're not, other than the fact that he's always just saying stuff or whatever. But now, yeah, it's like you are kind of in a sense, just because he's going, just on the fact that he's going, and then media stuff afterwards. So, yeah, I think like probably like the cooler heads will prevail is probably always the best way to go, and just like take the high road because yeah, I mean, but it's true that like if other people in the future, like if you are on some bigger shows, there's a lot of like the mainstream people out there. That's the thing; they're not going to know all the past stuff. They're not going to know about all these of what's really going on. They might even barely know his channel. So it's kind of interesting to think about that too. Is like
Exactly.
how to somehow like keep it very cool throughout. Like I'm just saying, ideally, I would think like if I was in that position in that way, just like because just to kind of let that happen without even having to like call them out. Because like if you call them out more, and then the other people don't even know what's going on, versus you just completely
Sure.
playing it cool, and then him just being in his own thing. Yeah, it's just wild because they don't know all the back stuff. So
Well, that's my idea though. Is
I'll
like
put
because
something
like
together anyway.
if they were to, okay, I'm not gonna bring up any personal beef, Brian. Right? Like that's my whole point. Is like I'm not doing any of that. I've never seen him be able to have a conversation with me without getting triggered. He's obviously going to do everything in his power to like trick the audience into thinking that he's like this cool-headed, nice, likable guy or something. And we'll just see how it goes. I've never seen it, and like my actual objective is just to get information out there. I just find him very lame, and this is what I think, right? Okay, if they go look into him afterwards, that's only going to help us because the normal people do not. You have to be like just super weird to watch that guy and be like, yeah, you get him or something. And we're talking about the guy that when I shouted out anti-disinformation league, and I said the good ADL, that he virtue signaled about me being anti-Semitic for like 30 minutes. We're talking about that guy. We're talking about that guy when I said ADL, the good ADL. And he's like, oh, what do you mean by good ADL? And then just like virtue signaled and called me anti-Semitic. So it's like, I'm just saying, like, the average person is just going to be like, what is wrong?
It's
I'm
abnormal.
not too
It
worried
is
about
abnormal.
Yeah.
Like his whole channel, like it's not even a dig on him. I'm just saying, even from like a psychologist, like the DSM-5, like the actual like of things. I'm not trying to call him any of that. I'm just saying, like it's abnormal. A lot of the what's going.
Have
Like
you
that's
ever
not.
considered, getting just a restraining order? Like, no, it's
Straight
not
up.
funny. I mean, if you had a restraining order, I don't think he would be even allowed to go to Antarctica because he couldn't be next to you on the plane.
Well, it's probably true.
He
Well, however
literally was
that would
telling
work, I don't
everybody
know.
about
But
his Batman suit, and I was just like, oh my gosh, hope he
Like
doesn't take
he
boy
has
boy
maybe a
he
little
has a
bit too late for
mental
that.
Antarctica.
problem. He has
Dude,
a very
come
bad
on,
mental
man.
problem.
But do you
Yeah.
guys
I
see
can
my
see
bigger
him.
point? My bigger point is that it's like a W for flat earthers in a way, though, because like, you know what I'm saying? Like in a way, at first I was like, oh man, it sucks. Like this guy's
Yeah,
gonna
that's
just totally
on the
kill the
point though.
vibe.
Like this dude has. Okay, you ever seen that movie where like the guy's obsessing about somebody and he like kills him? Like,
Yeah, dude.
like
Eventually,
what?
they
Like
end up
you're just
killing the
taking this
person.
way
Dude.
too. Like he has an actual mental issue. You're taking this like way too lightly. Like you need to
He's
get
saying he has a
some kind
shrine
of
with
like.
it.
Yeah,
well, yeah, but like a
probably.
restraining order is a whole legal thing. I don't even know
Yeah,
how
I
that
think
would even fly.
I think
But
it's beyond
Yeah,
that
go to the
point.
judge and say this Glober's bothering me.
No, that's
You're
what
it's
you
allowed
would
not
to
just
say.
bothering; it's pretty severe.
You're allowed
Like
to
it
take a
definitely
knife.
is criminal at
You're allowed
times.
to
So
take
I mean,
knives.
When he sent that present to your daughter, that I would have got the restraining order at that point. That was a little like you told him many times to stay away from you don't talk to him, etc. And he went out of his way to just to let you know that he can be in your house. That was fucked up.
He might be
Yeah,
in your house
true.
right now.
how did he get the address?
Well, it's
There's
a
a PO
PO
box.
box or something.
Oh, right. He just
Yeah.
But like,
if anything, I'd make some kind of joke about, hey, if you want to check out my channel, there's my channel, Witsit Gets It, and there's also McToon Live, which is also a channel completely about me. Yeah, there's two Witsit Gets It channels being represented on the platform.
That's good humor, though.
No, it is kind of a bummer because, dude, in life, like in general, like when adults are adults, they're just adults, like you do your thing and you respect each other. Like, I mean, when I went to grad school, there was none of this. Like nobody in grad school is doing any of this stuff. No slander, no insults, none of that stuff. Everyone's like, you're adults, like you're learning, you may not agree with everyone and everything, but it's like, that's how adults function. So it's kind of unfortunate that whatever he is going on with him and some of these other individuals, that they're not just being like, because there could just be a general like mutual respect for intellectual curiosity and for interest and, figuring things out and all of that. Like it doesn't have to be like the way it is like this, and so it is unfortunate that almost like now, like you almost kind of have this guy like on your tail almost or something, almost like the paparazzi. See, I like when like those guys like Justin Bieber, they get haunted by the paparazzi. I always think like, God, shouldn't Bieber just be able to like blow them away like with a flamethrower? Like get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, but obviously like legally they kind of can't. Now that's an extreme level. That's like paparazzi. Every time you get out of your car, there's like 10 guys taking photos of you. Or whatever that whole thing is, which obviously that's not quite what you're going through, but I mean, but with whatever MC Toon is doing, it's almost like, I don't know, you have like a stalker, basically. So I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying like, it pretty much is the case. I mean, these guys that make videos about you endlessly, that is abnormal. It's not normal to do any of that. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of intense, but then the other thing, speaking of intense and then the word tense, it sounds like Duffy said also like links to this is, and I'll just say the last thing here is that there's like, he said ALE like set up like a camp for you guys. So does that mean that like McToon is going to be in a tent like right next to yours as well? Like it can't even be that you're going to have tents like on the other side of the whole place?
I don't know specifically about that, but I mean, they seem to be pretty accommodating overall. Like, I don't intend on interacting. Like, what he's gonna do is constantly try and like interact with us and Well, I just
Yeah.
know how it's all gonna go. Really, like he's gonna not keep that same energy at all. Every single time one of these people meet me in real life, they're like totally different, dude. Like timid, nervous. I mean, frankly, feminine. So I mean, I'm not like that's my prediction.
I've heard he's
So
kind of a small guy. Like I think when David Weiss said he met him, that he was way smaller than he thought. Like he kind of thought he was going to be a bigger kind of guy, but actually he's kind of short and small. Apparently smaller of a dude. So you're probably going to be like taller and bigger than him.
yeah.
I was gonna throw out there, Geo and Witsit, like at the same time too. This guy is creating content for his viewers. Now his viewers have given him collectively over $80,000 of their own money. So he is putting on a show. Now, whether he's like truly just a psychotic, crazy, like stalker of Witsit because he's like, no, you can't be right, and I have to be, I have to be right. Well, I don't know. But at the same time, he puts this content out for his fucking crazy subscribers. Like, if you just read some of those comments, bro, like on some of his streams, like his fucking, like the people that love him and follow him, they're fucking crazy. Like, those dudes are the weirdos that will probably try to hunt you down to do something based upon what McToon's presenting and putting out there. And it's like he's fueling them. So I would say his fucking viewers are the batshit crazy ones, and then he's just making money off of them. That's what I think.
I mean, to me, it looks like they're all kind of like Israeli trolls. I wouldn't even believe that most of them are even like real people with real like beliefs. And I think that they're just like kind of propping up the illusion of an audience because they just want to act like they have this whole like anti-flat earth thing going.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that somebody is a plant, which a lot of people think that McToon is a plant, then like there's no reason to believe that the social media numbers are authentic. Whether it's straight up pumping the numbers up, bots, etc.
You're saying when it shows 600 watching, it's really like 110.
Yeah,
like 80 or something.
like you could even do this on your end of having like bots that do this. But if he's some kind of suspect person put into this, then they would absolutely pump up his numbers.
I mean, even one of the guys that was like came here as a part of like being from his channel, he just comes in here and he does the same kind of Glober tactics. So it's like he's already kind of on the same level of like disinfo behavior as they are, and it seems that they're all kind of that way. So they're all just probably like the same people.
Didn't he like pretend to not know Duffy or something? Like, and they had already been. I forget. Someone was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the part that's weird to me, though, is when you find someone that is ostensibly woke in lots of ways, like they're not with all this like cancel culture, super soft, get offended by everything. They see through a lot of these like deceptions and even some of the bigger ones. And then all of a sudden they'll be like watching McToon and they'll be like, oh, well, go check out McToon's website. Go check out McToon's. It's like, does flat earth actually trigger you that much, bro? Do you not see, like, let's just say you're right, the earth's a globe. You should have moved on immediately. The fact that you're like upset and obsessed with it while pretending it's easily disproven, and then it's causing you to align with people that in any other scenario you would think are incredibly lame, right? Who are virtue signaling about the ADL. That's what's so weird about this conversation. It's like a spiritual thing or something, right? Like it pulls something out of these people where all of a sudden, I don't know, they just align with the lamest, gayest energy ever.
Did nobody point that out to him in the second that he started trying to like attribute this other, this other group? Like, did no one say no, not that ADL, you dumbass? He's talking about like, come on, dude. Like, no one pointed that out.
No, that was the point. That was the point. Like I said, ADL, the good ADL, right? So I made a joke. So then he's like, what do you mean by that? What's the bad ADL? And then he starts virtue signaling about me being anti-Semitic.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
but after someone told him what you
hear.
But after you told him, why didn't he, like, that's what I think APOC's saying, like, why didn't we just tell him, like, no, dude, that's what he meant. But he didn't like, did anyone tell him that? Like,
I'm saying he knew that. He knew that.
Oh, he knew it right off the bat.
Yeah. I said, go to ADL.place, Anti-Disinformation League. So ADL.place, I plugged it
So
again
he
a little
just
bit later, and
smearing
I said,
you.
I just made a joke, like the good ADL. I made a joke about how obviously the ADL is insane. And then he just took that as an opportunity to virtue signal. What's so funny though, I called him out later about it, and I'm like, "Wait, you want to talk about it?" I'm like, "Do you know why the ADL was founded? Because some Jewish guy like raped and murdered a little girl, and then tried to blame some black dude, right?" And like, I start going through that, and then he just doesn't say anything. He's like, "Oh, I don't really know anything about that." I'm like, so you don't have any idea what you're talking about? You're virtue signaling about it. So
That's
yeah, I
so
don't know.
fun. I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that, dude. Yeah, his name was Leon Frank. I was just about to say, have you ever heard the story of how the ADL got started?
Right.
Well, I'm just
So he's
saying, but
a
even after
scumbag.
that, like when people told him that's obviously what you like, he still went with it. Even after people told him, obviously you were making a joke related to that, the context or whatever. He didn't.
Oh, I think he knew the joke. He knew it was a joke because it was during a debate or something that he was reviewing where I was just plugging Shane's database. And so he knew, right? He knew that that's what it was. Someone asked me where they can find the stuff, and I plugged Shane's database.
What a scumbag he is. Dude. He's just such a scumbag.
It is
But
kind
yeah,
of like just, I'm not trying to call him a troll, but like that is like what a troll behavior on the internet is to like take something like that and then like if he heard the whole thing
And run with
and
it.
heard the whole context, I mean, unless he's going to say he didn't hear that part or something or that he misunderstood it. But if he didn't do that, then to then take it and then purposefully change the entire context of it and then switch it into something that's like supposed to be like a serious accusation of like, yeah, like racial hate or whatever stuff like this. Yeah, that's what like a troll, because they then will use that to then go. That's kind of what I
It's
think of. Like
smearing
there's
you.
different ideas of the word troll, but like, when you put a fishing line off the back of your thing and you have a hook and you're trolling for fish. So it's like they then use something like that to then troll, and then they put it out there and see what they can get to bite on it, or what people will listen or whatever.
Isn't smearing somebody like not? I mean, isn't that an act of like criminal act in some way, some sort?
So it's civil. That's civil. It's called
Yeah, civil.
slander.
Right.
Yeah, like you're
Libel.
liable. Yeah, but this is the thing. Most people don't know this, right? But you have to prove that the person is intentionally lying, and then when given the opportunity, so that if they choose to publicly admit that they were wrong and lying and then correcting the record, then they're no longer liable for it. Just like, no, I'm just saying, no, he like doesn't ever do that. But I'm just not like, that's not something I don't care. Like, I'm not going to go through all that. I'll probably do have, ironically, a good civil attorney that he actually owes money, but no, I don't care. I don't care.
At that
He
point,
slandered me
it's like
many, many
at
times,
that
bro.
point, it's almost like you would be. I mean, dude, there's so many cases you could probably open at this point. So like you could like. And then like it's like at some point it's gonna like he's gonna lose all his money and he's got a family and stuff. So like I would think like if whatever he has going on mentally, but I still wouldn't want to like take all dude's money, even though you could like probably, but I'm just saying I
Yeah,
wouldn't
bro.
personally feel right about that.
He's mentally unstable already. Take away his career, bro. Talking shit about Witsit, dude. You never know what he's capable of. He loses everything, all his followers, or he can't go to Antarctica because you put a restraining order on it. Dude, it's just like, yeah, he might pop, dude, and come after you.
It's
I mean, in
much
that
better for me
sense,
to just ignore him, bro. Like,
Yeah, just
and
ignore him, dude.
Right.
yeah,
I
and
wouldn't
it's
even
like,
worry
bro,
about
I
it,
just said,
man.
bro, I have multiple weapons, bro. So, like,
Right. Is he gonna come after you with his Batman outfit on? Come on, man. Like just
well,
it's
freaking
this is
always the
the
Batman
thing,
outfit.
dude, it's
just
like
push
insane
him
that it
down.
ever.
Push
Why
him
would you
down.
ever
Just
even?
call him a bitch.
But, but why would you ever even get into this world of like this personal, like talking about people's families and stuff? Like he's talked about my wife multiple times. He's talked about my daughter multiple times. It's like, you know how lame you have to be, because you would never make threats or comments about my children or my wife with me present. And so it's like that's one of the major reasons that I just like out of sight, out of mind. I don't even know what he says, don't care at all. I always think it's hilarious that if someone ever compels me to watch a clip or something and I start listening, I'm like, it's way funnier to me to know that he invests all this time and energy around the clock, like doing these long form 3, 4, 5 hour videos reviewing me, and he goes through all these very tactical lies to misrepresent what I'm saying and to slander me. And he's like doing it in this parasocial way, as if he feels like we have some type of relationship, and he's speaking to me, but in reality, I never hear it, and I don't know what it is, and I couldn't care less. To me, that's way funnier. That's way funnier than like correcting the record and getting him and clipping it up and showing he's a liar, because it's like that's what he wants. He just wants like interaction or attention and engagement, and wants to provoke me. You know what I'm saying? Because like, and this turned up like 10x once I said, okay, now you've crossed the line. I've warned you many times. I'm not debating you. I'm not talking to you anymore. That's when he started going like way over the top and doing anything. He was intentionally like just making up like blatant lies, because he thought that that would be a way to get me to interact, because I would correct the record, right? Like if you can make an egregious enough lie about someone, then you can trap them into feeling like they have to correct the record and then interact, right? So to me, that's also gay. That's just so feminine and stupid. And it's like, I don't care if you can't watch. If flat Earth triggers you so much that you like you like McToon, or you plug McToon, or you tell people to go listen to him, like that, you should really step back and be like, what is going on? Why would this conversation trigger me so much that I'm with the guy that like is the the perfect example of just an insane weirdo. So like I don't know, like again, that's the craziest part for me. It's like I know that statists exist. I know that keyboard warriors exist. You know what I'm saying? I know that like parasocial kind of sociopathic people exist. And I don't find that weird at all that they all congregate in an area where they feel like they can pretend to inflate their self-worth by attacking other people via the internet. Like that's not a new phenomenon. That's like totally expected. But what is weird, and is odd is the people that aren't like that per se, just because the flat earth triggers them so much, like they like go get in that group. You see what I'm saying? Like that's so weird to me, bro. If I thought the earth was a globe, I wouldn't. There's literally a 0% chance you would ever find me in a McToon chat. You know what I'm saying? Like you would have to kill me first.
Kill you, possess your soul as a ghost, and then somehow be possessed to then do that. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Only maybe.
It's a dark energy to be really just hateful towards other people, yeah, rather than just being in discourse and respect.
If he comes up and introduces himself, who are you again?
Hold on, your mic went out.
And that's what NASA does to us, though. They just ignore the shit. And I don't know, man. I see what you're saying, though, Austin.
Yeah, paraplegic cut out. Yeah, paraplegic. Okay, you went through, but I was assuming you're going to say something about if he introduces himself as Batman, ignore him. Have we gone over the Hollywood producer coming in?
Thing is, though, MC Toon is not even the only one doing it. If you've looked, by the way, I'm not even trying to bring this guy up or any of this, but we were just talking a little bit about this, and for some reason, we were just talking about various like things and stuff, and then I went over to QE's channel, dude. His last like 14 videos have you in every single one. There's like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. There's like an 8-part series. There's the review of the Tim Pool one. I mean, I don't watch his channel, but like his entire channel is now just about you. So, and he's always talked about you a lot or whatever. So he's another one. So like MC Toon does what he does, but then there's other folks doing this as well. So I guess I'm not trying to bring it up to go into these other guys. I'm just saying like MC Toon's not the only one who's doing that. And then obviously those guys have been doing that extensively about you for a long time. So yeah, dude, it is wild. Like the actual, just the psychological energy about just like harboring some kind of attack or hate for someone to a level that your whole channel is basically, that's the whole content. It's pretty dark in my viewpoint, no matter what. And I'm not even trying to call these people out or say anything about them in particular. I'm just saying in general, like, there's like this Betty White. Remember that? Have you guys seen that quote? I don't think I'm gonna remember it, but it's something like something sort of like kind of like if you find yourself really focused on being anti something, like maybe kind of basically was saying like reevaluate your life and kind of work on yourself, like make something productive, do something in the world, like being so anti against something else it's not healthy. And I'm not really quoting it right, but it's like that sentiment, just if you find yourself just being really anti something, especially if it involves like some kind of suppression. I mean, it's one thing to be like against, like, yeah, I mean, you're against rape or something. Yeah, of course, be against that. It's not that type. It's when you're like really like, yeah, more of the, and being like hateful or having some kind of like needing to suppress or just like shut someone else from thinking something, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's another part of it. So obviously we've shifted into this new era where like it's the death of mainstream media. And so it's like the era of podcasts and live stream, right? And streamers are like the new sources of information, and they not only blow out the mainstream in terms of viewers, but even like compensation now. And that's the new world. And that's a good thing, right? Because you have alternative media that people get to choose. There isn't like this top down, funneled, controlled method of being informed. It's like you get to seek out who you think is thorough or honest, or can come back and be like, look, turns out I was wrong about this, or here's evidence for this, or whatever. And so that's a very good thing. That's liberated a lot of people. That's why so many people have woken up. It's expedited since the pandemic and all that. The downside to it, though, has become extremely saturated and diluted. And in reality, to do something like that, most people actually shouldn't be doing it. Like most people don't have like the talent, or like, everyone has their own little gifts or whatever, but now everyone thinks they have the gift of getting on camera and articulating positions in a compelling way or being entertaining or whatever. So now like everyone and their mom does it, okay? And they shouldn't be. And so what happens when you're actually like, people aren't just naturally inclined to just go listen to you on camera because they're truly interested in like your own individual insights. You rely on other people. You need to track them down. Oh, they're over here in this room. Oh, they're doing a stream here. Like that's what McToon does every time I do a debate or whatever, right? You rely on other people, and then the hatred of those other people to bring in an audience for you, right? So that's the real part of this. That's the other side of it. So it's like this weird, maybe personal defect, a spiritual defect, where it's like hatred and stuff like that will get like, unless the only thing I can even think of I would ever invest energy towards specifically like that is like pedophilia or something. Like I can understand like feeling almost like hatred towards someone abusing children and like let's get them or whatever. But outside of that, it's like, how would you not just move on? If you have anything worth value individually, you would just move on. So that's the other side of it, right? You see what I'm saying? So like, why does FTFE, Mattoon, QE, Oakley, why do they all like tactically watch the stream with Tim Pool and try to find when I'm making a weird face or something, screenshot it, make me look goofy in the thumbnail, put my name in the title and lie about what I say, and say like, Witsit abandons flat earth on Tim Pool, or Witsit's clout chasing on Tim Pool, when in reality someone reached out to me, asked me to go on there, and they're clout chasing by desperately trying to also get on there, and then clout chasing by just trying to like literally just scoop up any clout off the remainder of the show, right? But so like, they need the other people to exist. Okay, so that is the biggest part of it, in my opinion. 100%. If you pulled flat Earth out of the mix, who listens to McToon's channel? Okay, so he literally needs flat Earth to exist. It's the only sales pitch he even has to like a prospective audience to come listen to him speak. Okay, but there are other people where it's like, an audience wants to come listen to their opinion on anything, to the extent where they say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Did you hear about this coming on? Hey, have you ever looked into this event? Have you ever considered this philosophical ideology? What do you think about this? And they're genuinely compelled to that person's insights. That's what it should be. That's what content actually should be, right? And then there's the other 99% of like modern content that's super diluted and saturated, where people are literally only existing via proxy. Their channel is like via proxy of other people. Okay. So they have no choice. QE has no choice. Oakley has no choice. Platoon has no choice. FCFE has no choice. The alternative is literally that they all of a sudden stop getting this income and that they don't really get to keep making content. They don't get to kind of have the egotistical aspect of feeling like they're special because they make content or whatever, you know? So that's what I think. I think it's not really much deeper than that. And you're, especially when you're talking about the side that's on the, like the group that's on the side of the system, they're being propped up in the algorithms. They're never demonetized. You know, there's probably tons of bots. Like who gifts 200, subs to FTFE, bro? Are you kidding me? Like a human did that? So who knows if even like these actual big tech companies kind of push certain narratives by even supporting them financially or whatever. So like
Yep.
there's all these different variables of like money and importance or whatever, or feeling special, where maybe normally it wasn't like that, and whatever, where it's like they just can't give that up. You're basically asking them to give up like a drug. And like if you were to say, hey, FTFE, you now need to stop talking about flat earth, like he wouldn't know what to do with himself, So no, that was a lot, but that's my take on it. When you really see that, then it's like you can understand my perspective is like, I think that's all extremely lame. And I take like random extended breaks from making content. So like I'm just not like we're just not the same. We're not the same. I don't see it. I would never obsessively talk about someone else on my channel. That would be so gay and lame. I would feel so like weird, and I don't know. So like it's really easy for me to just ignore it. So that's what I do. I ignore all of it. I wouldn't have known about the QE thing. I wouldn't know about any. Like I just ignore it.
You know, he claims that the
Yeah, I
photon
mean,
doesn't even exist before it goes to the slits. He claims the photon doesn't even exist until it hits the plate. You'll rarely hear him say that. Like, dude, if I threw out his actual claims, his actual beliefs, but dude, he accuses you of so much stupid shit. Like you got an interpretation of the way you believe things work, and you're explaining your beliefs, and he's calling you dishonest. Like it's just fucking beliefs, you dipshit. Like, dude, their shit gets so old, it's ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. He's a pathological liar for sure.
I just ignore all of it. I just ignore, like, who cares? And this is the other thing I want to say to you guys. So, like, with this big show, right? And you'll see it'll make more sense whenever it all happens and stuff. But it's like, dude, there's an entire group of people that align with us and like align with me on a ton of things. And even if they don't agree with flat Earth, okay? And so if there's two people, there's two sides, and one's like, yo, 2020, here's the truth of that. And they try to take away our freedom. They try to lock us down. This is not a prison. That was all orchestrated. It was planned years in advance. They released a bio weapon, blah, 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 blah. This is tyranny. We need to expose it. They're trying to push us to a technocratic digitalization, like a digitalized technocratic state. We need to expose it. Like they're trying to sexualize our children. We need to stand up and expose it. Right? They're trying to normalize pedophilia with a new term called minor attracted persons. We need to expose it. World War II was a lie. We need to expose it. Like all these different lies. Like there's fluoride in our water, and it's literally causing all kinds of major health issues, including attacking our children. We need to expose it. What they're doing to children right when they're born, and then they're mutilating them, all this stuff. We need to expose it. All these things. And they're going to align with all of that. NASA was started by literal Satanists. And whether you think Satanism is stupid and goofy and fake and not real, it doesn't matter. Just a fact, an objective fact is that there were people that think it's real and believe in it and were self-proclaimed Satanists that did seances and occultic rituals at the founding of NASA. Literally, right? There's a group of people that know that. And they're like, this is super weird. NASA's weird. And now that they name everything after these different gods and different like metaphysical beliefs, it's really weird when you find out that people that literally founded it were actual Satanists. And that's, there's another group of people that are like, they think the moon landing is complete nonsense. And so even though those people may not be with FE, if you start pointing that out, or how modern scientism is used as this method to control you, and it's really pseudoscience, and totalitarianism disguised as science, where it's saying you can't question it, which is antithetical to science. And they're like, the Earth is 4.8 billion years old. You're insignificant. You're just made of stardust, and lightning struck primordial soup, and rocks turned into fish, and the fish jumped out of the water, and your ancestors are strawberry. And you're insignificant. You're tucked away in an insignificant corner, and it's all random and it's chaotic, and there is no real moral objectivity, and you're meaningless. You're purposeless. Like, people know that that is a tactic used. Scientism is being used. Same way with the bioweapon. He's like, safe and effective. You're not a doctor. You're a science denier. You're a anti-vaxxer or whatever. Sit down and stay in place and comply and listen to the science. You're not an expert. And they know that there's so many people that know that they're hiding God, that they're hiding the truth of so many different things, and that the system is hiding behind this illusion of expertise in science, and it's all funded top down to where everyone kind of falls in line and pushes the propaganda. If you're the flat earther, but you recognize all of that, you speak out about all of that, then the other side, that's the globe earther, denies all of that, mocks people for all of that, defends the system's narrative with all of those situations. Like, that person's not just suddenly gonna align with the globe earther. They're just gonna be like, damn, like, how come where I fall on this subject, the only representative of it are these psychopaths that lie about everything else? Maybe there is something here that I'm like not allowing myself to see. And that was a big rant, I know, but the conclusion is that it's actually beneficial. Truth doesn't fear investigation. So it's like, in the end, when everything settles, like, truth is the last thing standing, right? And so even at the time it may be frustrating, someone like him will kind of bring in these deceptive vibes. It actually ends up working out for truth in the end, because lies can never do anything other than work for like the creator's plan in the end anyway. So, that was a lot. I know I'm kind of like preachy even, but that's how I view this whole thing. So I'm like, yo, maybe it's like a huge blessing in disguise, because he's going to inadvertently force people to consider the subject because of his behavior so reprehensible and degenerate and dishonest in all these other fields, that they're kind of forced to step back and look at everything in like a meta way, where they have to kind of break through cognitus for a second, question their beliefs.
Yeah, you see, they've been so heavily dissociated from reality that their oppressor has become their god, and they align with this oppressor and use the arguments by them to attack you because it's safe.
Yeah, and they think it's supported by that larger system that is that the body of science, as it were, as if science had a body.
Like, a normal person is not just gonna like breeze past the fact that literal Satanists founded NASA. What a normal person is gonna do is say, "What are you talking about? There's no way that's true. That's insane. That sounds insane." Right?
Yeah,
That's like
but you
maybe a
see,
normal reaction, and then you find out that it's real. A normal person is gonna be like, "That is super weird and super creepy. What is really going on? That's crazy. I can't trust those people." Right? That's
yes,
a
you're
normal
right.
person.
Yes, you're right. But you see, most aren't normal anymore. When you're dissociated and traumatized like super heavily, you're not thinking. And so you see, they have learned to adhere to a thought form. We talked about this a few days ago. I wish you were present, but a simple summary is that we talked about something called egregores. And if you're not familiar, it's a thought form created which gets worshipped by a group or a collective. And this worship manifests this entity into reality, not in a real sense in which it exists in a metaphysical term, but this collective imagined manifests the entity which they abide by. So you can do that with a lot of things. The globe, for example, is just one of these types of egregores, just as much as most of other religions as well, and deities, etc. All are the same type of in a similar fashion. They are an egregore that they by this collective worship manifest into existence. So you see, this when they get grouped together like this, and they create this collective community through dissociation, through this trauma, they attempt to realign with reality through this type of call it like a signification that puts them in alignment, at least so they think like, or would wish like, right? They would desire to be actually grasping common sense, because common sense is pretty much knocked out of their head. But they are mistaken for thinking that they are to do this through this egregore, because they have not learned that their imagination has been weaponized against them. So now they are believing and belying to this entity rather than actually realizing the commonsensical nature of nature.
All right,
So
but in this
this
case, you're
is the
saying
biggest
that. Hold,
problem
hold
we
on.
have with it.
Okay, but you're saying that the entity in this case is the thought form or the idea or the whatever the conception was, whether it's that Earth is a sphere or whatever other conceptions, men or women, these kinds of, all these different things, and that by creating, some kind of like a thought form, it becomes almost an entity in and of itself by the
Yes.
promulgation of it, and then other people either worshiping it or think they have to worship it or that they have to
Yes.
follow its tenets.
Yes, correct. That's the entire point with education. It's to train the children, because you need to hijack the children first, because the children are the children of God. So, when they're very traumatized to reality as being God, because, as we talked about also, God also means supreme reality. And I would argue that reality as it is the supreme reality. There's nothing grander than the existence or the reality in which we currently are engaged with. But they want us to be super dissociated from this. And to do that, you need to attack the children, or you need to corrupt the children. So the
I
children
got you.
then gets
Well,
corrupted.
no, I hear you, dude. Hold on. We were actually on some topics and something. I appreciate that, but it wasn't quite the full topic. Like we weren't really on just a full kind of open flow of that. We were actually talking about some specific, like an event that's going to be happening soon, and then things like that. So
Oh, sorry.
if you don't mind,
it's
we
because
could go into some of that stuff after, but we just weren't really quite in like a open flow at the moment with that. With like we were kind of talking, unless I don't know, like what I mean, Witsit, did you? Because did you want to continue? Because I know you were we were on the topics we were on, but
Well, I kind of got it all out in like the rent, like that. I mean, I was talking to Kelly Brogan yesterday. I was actually on her show, which will air later, but we were talking, and there's something about it. It's almost like this field. It's like, is it a field of consciousness in the ether in this way, where there's this congregation of these beliefs? Like, you're never really going to find someone that's a flat earther or doesn't believe in the mainstream globe model, right? So like denies the globe model, or even, right, that also falls for all these other deceptions. It doesn't exist really. It's like effectively non-existent. But you're very rarely going to find people that have like visceral reactions and then they just can't yield or acknowledge anything regarding flat earth or the conversation, that are awake to all those other truths. You see what I'm saying? There's almost like
pretty
this.
rare,
There's
yeah.
like there's like these layers in some like etheric realm. There's like a barrier, and there's like a field of consciousness or something where there's an overlap, like germ theory, mold, heliocentrism, like, and there's layers to it. Like you may be like kind of normie conservatism, mainstream conservatism, quote unquote woke, right? But then like completely deceived and incapable of seeing or resonating with all these other truths below that. So that's my point, is like, if that's the case, then you can kind of rest assured that everything is kind of taking place in a fractal nature, far beyond any way you could actively, like proactively control. And so then when if anything like this is true, then you just kind of let the chips fall where they may, because there are kind of like these energetic components at play, and they're like these resonance of truth at play, whereas you don't really have to overly worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all going to take place in the way it's supposed to. It's like there are certain people that are able, I think it's even like they may still not be to those truths, but they're able to kind of walk through the barriers. Let's just use an analogy of like, kind of like how if you shoot a radio wave at ionized gas, it'll reflect back if it's at a frequency the same as the ionized gas or lower. But if it's a higher frequency, it'll go right through it, right? And they're like, there are these people, say there's this person that has a high enough frequency where they can actually just walk all through the layers. They just maybe haven't walked through them yet. They haven't even been shown like, hey, if you take a left here, there's another layer over there that you can walk through. But then there's a group of people that have such a low frequency that they quite literally can't. And even though they may actually be obsessed with that layer and they may actually talk about it for 7 straight years and make entire YouTube channels about it and stalk all these individuals involved in it, they walk up to that barrier and they just keep hitting the wall. Like they literally can't get through it. There's some individual component that would have to take place first. I know it's kind of a deep point, but I mean, I'm explaining kind of my perspective on the whole, even like McToon being on there thing. It's like, it's fine because there's this way bigger picture where things are kind of being sifted out, sifted through and organized in a way like that is far beyond our control. We're just kind of supposed to, I mean, do our part, you know, and always be willing to be like, you know what? Let me not just assume that I'm the one that can walk through all these barriers, right? Maybe there are barriers I don't see that I'm not walking through that the other people do see. And then you always just prioritize kind of like the internal aspects. And then everything else just takes care of itself. It's like if there's some crazy person trying to combat you, the number one email I get, like I say this all the time, but it's true. Like the number one theme of the emails I get is that the other people, the people that combat us, the people that fight us, the people that lie about us, they are the ones who pushed them through the barrier. So we should thank them in a way, and they're a part of the equation.
Would you say it's nature or nurture, in your opinion, Witsit? These people and the way that they sort of operate.
Well, I think it's just as a false dichotomy. No, I'm saying like yeah, but like because the way that you're raised has an maybe an effect, but I've seen people from like all walks of life come to these same conclusions, you know, obviously. And I think we all have the natural capability to do it. Although there is actually a thesis, Steiner puts that forward. I think I've talked about this in here, that some people are literally incapable of individuation. I don't personally believe that. I think I even just prefer not to believe that or something. But so in that case, I wouldn't say it's natural because everyone's naturally capable of it. And although nurture, meaning your environment, may certainly play a role in kind of your path there or the like how fast you go through whatever path. But I think that neither one of them are really it's all just like an internal thing.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that there seems to be like I don't know, I don't even know how you would fully identify this, right? Because I mean, we live inside the paradigm. We can't sort of take people outside of it and test them independently. But yeah, there are some people that tend to follow the crowd a little bit more than the others. I'm also like kind of curious if this is sort of instantiated through sort of astrological powers and influence, but you know, that's a separate topic.
I don't know. I think everyone can because I've also talked to a few people that have been like, bro, you're not going to believe this, but I was the guy, I used to obsessively be in your chat talking about how much of a liar you were and how wrong you were for years. And I kept up with all your arguments and then like went and watched like McToon and them and had all the counters and would say repeat all the narratives. And then at one point something just like clicked and they re-examined everything and saw it a totally different way. So I've actually had, I mean, not a ton, but a decent amount of people tell me that, which is crazy to think about, right? Like thinking about, you know, some of these people maybe in here or on these YouTube channels doing that seems kind of insane. But
if I was to say anything or venture to offer up a reason for that, like you need to lose faith in the system, and for whatever reason or like whatever that is, everyone has an independent sort of experience that will lead them down that path to lose faith in the system. It's kind of a bit of a timing thing as well, like especially if you're coming across these more kind of controversial topics. But then just to lose faith in the system, and then that's just enough to sort of spark the fire or the flame and sort of, let's say, like poetically illuminate the situation for yourself.
Yeah, but you see that simply goes to that the system or whoever supposedly is helping you or guiding you on along the way, who should be, you know, what the child looks up to, their parents or some kind of idol figure. They have only been telling stories, or they've created a narrative. Just simply, they have paved for a false life. And when you realize that all this is just a story and nothing is actually real, it's just built on all these fictional storytellings that has guided the narrative now down into a pit hole. That is when that trust is broken, because you trusted them to help you actually find a code of conduct that is life affirmative. But now you realize that this is just it's just nonsense. And so that is a shock, and that shock makes you start to think for yourself, if you haven't, you know, been doing that much of lately, and have been trusting the environment around you. And I think that is what then leads the being to actually go down to now being interested in actually figuring what is actual and what is not. So that goes back to what I just pointed out to you, Witsit, which is that, you see, if they have been entertained to think by a certain idea of what the world is, or reality, and not what reality is in of itself, you see, the idea has replaced reality. And so now they are guided by the idea, and when the idea is illuminated, they realize that, yo, wow, you know, it was only an idea. It was not real. It was an idea. And when the ideology
All right,
then,
let's keep our
gets
points.
dismantled.
Let's try to keep our points to like about 30 seconds, if for now, because we're kind of in like a more of a show style right now. There's kind of if that's cool.
Yeah, so I can get back to an actual question. What's it? A couple of people were wanting to ask you this. Is the with the final experiment, there's the guy Leonard Williams who dropped out like last second, and he just happens to be a guy that was never talked about whatsoever. Just happens to drop out last second. And then this guy who's a literal Hollywood producer, and like if you look into him,
pause. I'm about to switch phones, so give me like 10 seconds.
For sure.
I think he knows what you're obviously bringing up, so you could finish for everyone
Yeah, the
else
Hollywood,
if people haven't.
Yeah. So he is a Hollywood producer. There's no evidence of this person being a flat earther. I think it was like Galatrax or Beasticles who looked into that.
Sorry, I didn't want you to like talk to me and then me not hear you. So.
Yeah, for sure. So this guy doesn't have any public evidence of being a flat earther, yet ostensibly is being called a flat earther. It's not inherently a red flag. Like, you wouldn't publicly say that. Most people wouldn't. But like, this guy is like very, very into Hollywood, like borderline doing work with people from like Diddy parties, like that kind of level of like high level Hollywood stuff, recommended by the Candace Owens person. And he's kind of coming in last second through ostensibly, oh, somebody dropped out and we had to get somebody. And then he's coming to be explicitly to film a documentary. Like that's how Duffy sort of pointed it out. So just what are your thoughts and what are your perspective on that?
Okay. So I obviously originally thought probably exactly what you think, which is like, this is laughably BS, and this clearly was planned the whole time, the last minute come in, etc. Okay, but I actually don't feel that way anymore, so I'll just kind of tell you. So the story goes that there were a few different people that reached out to Duffy after. So Duffy had to reach a certain amount, and they said, okay, wow, you know, if you're able to actually get a couple more, we'll pay for your trip, because it's kind of crazy you've got this many people to come. And then he dropped out, and it dropped him below the limit by a couple. And they're like, you're kind of have to get someone else to go. We can't really just cover you. And so then they was trying to look for someone else or whatever. And they said, well, what we can do is we can offer the last person half off or something, because part of it had already been paid by the other guy or whatever. And then I guess there were a few other people named that tried to contact him and ended up not working out. And then the guy from Candace's show said, okay, I know this guy who's a flat earther. I've known him for a few years through a mutual acquaintance, but we were in a wedding together recently, and I've known him for a few months. And he's a flat earther, and I think he may would want to go. And he also, is like a Hollywood producer or documentarian or whatever. And then Duffy says, well, he originally just said no because of obvious reasons, and everyone says this was a setup or whatever. Okay, so then we get the guys that were told this and say he's going to talk to him the next day and then make a decision. And so I come back to Discord, I give the guy's name, and I'm like, can you guys kind of help me look into this guy? Because they say that he's a flat earther, and even that he's even like been public about it. And so can you guys like verify that it's true? And then Biascles looks for a while and says there's nothing on the internet anywhere about this guy being a flat earther, etc. But now I've since found out that that actually isn't true. And Jaren just went to his like Facebook, and since all the way back in 2015, he's been posting flat Earth stuff. Okay, so he's been publicly a flat earther for a long time. So that doesn't actually mean that he's legit or he couldn't be part of a trick or anything. I'm just saying the narrative that he isn't a flat earther or there's no evidence of being a flat earther, which is what Biascles told me, isn't true. I have the screenshots I can drop in a second, but there's all the way back to 2015, he's dropping all kinds of stuff and like real flat earth arguments, videos, documentaries, proofs, questions, stuff like that.
All right, but
Yeah, which is fair.
But if that's the evidence, couldn't that also technically be faked since Facebook is obviously owned by, and they could just put that in now?
Sure.
Just as a possibility. But yeah, but I hear you though. It is evidence.
It's obviously like pivotal inclusion at this point. Once the original narrative was that he just never said anything about flat Earth, because those are two totally different things.
Right.
So we had a Zoom with him, right? And so me and Jaren just like completely grilled everyone in him, and it's recorded. And we're like, this is obviously not happening, and this was the main thing that we're not participating in the entire time. And we made points that it's like, why are the Globers not objecting to supposedly some flat earther coming and making a documentary, right? Like if Hibbler was going to come, they would just be cool with it. They were going to, the flat earther was going to use their likeness however they wanted to. And so Jeremy made the points like, so it seems to me there's obviously some type of inside information that we're not privy to, where the Globers aren't even coming off mute and saying anything. And
which would violate the contract.
Yeah, so then Keegan said, well, I signed the same contract that you guys wrote up with Duffy, so I have final edit rights and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, technically that was a contract with Duffy. And technically the contract does cover us in like every conceivable way. But anyway, so we just very quickly made the point. So I will say we felt out the guy, and I'll just say this is just my intuition. Okay, take it or leave it. 100% dude's just a flat earther, and he's not like super obsessed and nerdy with flat earth, but he's just like a flat earther. That's just my intuition based on asking him questions. And so then I said, okay, so if we see a 24-hour sun, does that mean the Earth's a globe? And he turned to Duffy and said, Duffy, am I for sure 100% going? And Duffy said, yeah. He's like, okay, no, it doesn't. so basically he was like not gonna say that because he thought it would jeopardize if he could get to go or not. Okay, now that could obviously all be a play or whatever, but I can tell you, I'm just telling you guys, you can watch the video. It wasn't. Anyway, none of this even matters because we made the point. Obviously, same thing goes here. No video, no audio of us can be used at all. And or without final edit and approval rights of the film in entirety. So they're signing a document that says that we get complete creative control, final edits, final approval rights of anything that we're used in. So, I mean, which is like insane. If you know anything about documentaries and stuff, people never ever give that away, right? Because like they can't
that's essentially making you the director.
Correct. And so they agreed. And I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing to worry about because literally we can just say no to anything. So it's like, fine. And so, yeah, that's where we are.
I believe according to the contract itself for this ALE or whatever they're called, the organization on the trip, like I think within their own contract, say that you can't record other people that are down there without their permission anyway. So you're protected by that as well.
So anyway, there is like a guy who claims to be a flat earther who's like a Hollywood producer who's now going last minute, which obviously on the surface sounds really sketchy, but he is a flat earther, bro. I will just say also he's just like much more of kind of like an intuition guy. When we started asking him about everything, he was like explaining the stuff he found and came across and the different videos he saw and stuff, and he came across debate early as well. And but he's just much more of a like, I don't he's like, you catch NASA lying and faking all this stuff, it's just obvious that they're hiding something. And then he went through a few flat earth proofs, you know. So anyway, that's kind of my take. It's like he didn't want to say out loud that this wouldn't prove a globe until he got like complete confirmation he'd be allowed to go, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, that's about it. Because stuff he's paying his way, and whatever. I mean, what can they do? What can they do if we have final edit rights? You know. So that's how I feel about it.
So they gave him like the half that the other guy had paid, and then they let him go for half. And then basically, you said ALE is the one that's kind of letting Duffy go basically for free or whatever. It's
yeah,
ALE.
because he's gotten like
it's like
9
a group rate.
total people to go or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a group rate thing. Well, that's what I think Duffy was saying, that they made a camp just for you guys. So that's what I was wondering what that is. Like,
well, that's because of the quiet hours things. So like they're moving us over a little away from the rest of the group because we're going to be up at night.
Right. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Which actually does make sense, you know.
Can you leave that?
What do you mean at night?
Yeah, I know, night. But
okay, during night hours, you know.
During the quiet hours where it's like, here is the legally mandated sleep time.
Yeah.
Can you still walk around though and get angles? Because that would be when the sun is in the south, you know, as the
yeah, we're supposed to have like pretty much free reign. Like we have our own little place.
How will we know if you come back and you're like you've been replaced by like an alien with a Witsit body? How will we know?
Okay, if I come back and I'm an alien, I don't know. I don't know any insurance
we already
policies.
know the answer. We already know the answer.
Yeah, I've already given like specific.
Do not repeat it.
Yeah,
if you start saying Earth is concave.
I've already said specific things I'll say that if I ever comes out of my mouth, then you know that I'm compromised.
If what does?
Yeah, specific phrases.
I know we need like code words. Like we should have.
We already have.
You'd have. Yeah, I know you should, but you should have like as many different people, and they're all different. None of those people know each other or something. Like you could do some crazy like code it in. But yeah, I know keywords like just like some like topic. Like you keep bringing up like vanilla ice cream or something. You're like, hey guys, I really love vanilla ice cream, and then that would be the hint.
If he says paraplegic coffee is freaking really tastes bad, then we know he's definitely been replaced.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Add that one to the list.
That's how you'll know. If he's like, dude, his coffee is terrible, then you would know. No, dude, it's like this is like kind of like a movie plot level of just this whole thing. So it's like people get pretty like wild in the speculations of ideas. But whenever like crazy ideas like that come up, because I mean, dude, like I just always say, like obviously, like I mean, I wish for your guys' best, like safety and health, and be able to make the trip and have a really good time and all that. So all these ideas of like, oh, are they going to take you somewhere else or drug you or do this or that or like replace you with a clone or like, because yeah, obviously people are so like wild ideas, but at the same time, like. It is like, I mean, anything, I think there is the idea that they can compromise people where they would just like go up to you and be like, hey, you know, you'll be in jail for life or whatever, you know, if they just can go around the law, that whole idea, then they would like offer you some deal or, you know, even like in the worst case, threaten your family and stuff like that. And I guess like in anything in today's world, if you're in any way threatening the power structure, I guess in theory, you know, that could happen, I guess, if you think they do that or whatever, if they do that and how they do it and whatever. But at the same time, like, then there's the question of like, okay, well then do you just give up on things or do you still do what's right and actually move forward is like, you know, in the best way possible. So, yeah, I think like, I mean, arguably even any of us discussing it technically, like if they were really going to do some program where they came and tried to compromise everyone talking about certain truth topics or something, but yeah, with this trip, obviously people have like speculated like wild ideas like that. But yeah, it would be kind of wild. Like it's just like more like a movie plot level though, you know, because like obviously like no one's wishing that on anyone, but I mean, I know you've probably thought about this. Sorry, I went kind of long winded, but what are your, I mean, do you have like, what are your thoughts on that? Or like just the fact that people are saying all kinds of wild stuff, but at the same time, everyone wants you guys to be safe and have a good time.
Like I don't know, I've kind of felt the same way the whole time. Is like, you know, the creators in control. So You know, like if the trip wasn't, if there was something super sketchy or like that, I think that the creator would intervene and something would happen or whatever, you know. So that's just kind of how I view it. I'm not just gonna be, yeah, I'm not gonna be really scared. And
well, they let people take this trip from everything I can tell. Like, yeah, it's like a trip people can take. Like, from what I can tell, like there's like vloggers and bloggers with YouTube channels and stuff that seem to have been there and they're climbing Mount Vincent and stuff. So like, unless like all of those are fake or it's all AI or something crazy, like I don't really at the moment have any reason to think it's not a site that people go. So I mean, if civilians go there, whoever the powers that be, they already know that whatever happens there, whatever it is. So, I mean, the fact that you guys would be going with a more investigative kind of eye, if anything, I think they would just cancel the trip if that's what it was in that way. So what I'm saying is that like, it's not like you're being taken on, as far as we know, you're not, the company is public. People have taken the trip in the past. It's not like you're being taken on some like special plane with like unknown people to some, you know what I mean? Like it is like a thing that the public can go to. You know, as far as I can tell from everything, it seems to be like, yeah, pretty authentic videos on YouTube of people being there and stuff like that. So, I mean, from that perspective, like, it seems like to me, if the powers that be didn't want it to happen, they would just cancel it. And then otherwise, it's already a place that they let people go. So whatever is happening there, if they really didn't want people there at all, I don't see why they'd let anyone pay 30 grand to go there, you know? So the fact that they already allow that shows that like whatever's there, they're willing to let be filmed and, you know, documented. So in that way, it doesn't seem like there'd be some reason for some wild like Hollywood script level of like they take you aside and like give you some, you know, compromise you or give you some ultimatum. It just doesn't really seem like it's even really in that. Like if you were going to some custom military base or something other wild like that, that'd be different. But I mean, this is a trip that's kind of a civilian level type trip that people take all the time, it seems like.
yeah, like I mean, everyone's acting like, oh, if they go down there and see the 24-hour sun, it's like gonna definitively disprove flat Earth and stuff. Like, no, dude. There are people that claim that star trails do that, and there are people that claim that those videos already exist. There are people that still deny that the one video is edited and stuff. And it's like, I hate to break it to you guys, that's not what's gonna occur, you know. So I think even FE is not fully thinking about how that's not really gonna happen. I mean, you know, so
You're
Yeah, I
right,
mean, I think
Witsit,
like I've
because
said, I
there's no
think
doubt. Oh,
I
I
think
thought I beat
the
you,
most
Gio.
it'll do to change anyone's viewpoint is I would say
Sorry,
like
just
I've said
ignore
like
me.
10. Well, hold on, man. Like 10%.
Sorry.
Yeah. So like 10% at most. Like I've always said like at least like maybe like 10% of people like may actually have some shift of their perspective, like if they're already somewhat on the fence. But it's going to bring so many new people into it that that's going to like far outweigh anyone who does, you know what I mean, for like the overall numbers. So I can't see any way in which any numbers of like stationary planar Earth cosmology is going to decrease. Seems like it will only increase from the whole thing when you combine all of that.
I think their response.
Oh wait, let
I
Rob
was
go.
trying.
Hold on, let Rob go.
Please.
We came in at the same time. So go ahead. I just had a point right to that, Rob. But yeah, go ahead, man.
Sorry, Gio. I wasn't trying to be a dick. I was talking first. I'm sorry. But all I was going to say is the same thing I keep on saying, which is probably redundant by now, that looking up at the sun is not going to give us measurable curvature on the ground. Thank you, Gio. I'm really sorry.
They're
Yeah.
gonna
No, it's all good.
what they're gonna say is like we never said there's gonna be a 24-hour sun.
But you don't think there's going to be one?
I know that's what they're gonna respond with.
They're going to say, well, how could they say they never said there was one? They have to say there was one. What do you mean?
No, they're gonna just deny it like they did that the horizon was the curve of the Earth.
How could they deny if the sun doesn't do a full 24-hour
And man,
motion?
they did it. They did it with the with the they did it with the horizon. Yeah, that's true. When Black Swan came out, they all switched it up. They threw the geometric horizon under the bus and dropped it like a bad habit, and they just acted like it's always been that way. Like they
No,
have
that's not true.
practice.
That's not
It's
true.
very true.
That's not
No, no,
true.
100% lane. True. I don't know, left lane. I don't know how long you've been within, around these Discord, servers. All of them that have come up and gone away, and even still there's some around. But years ago, like when I first got into it, started listening to Nathan Ugly way back then. The geometric horizon was your guys' ace up the fucking sleeve, and then you guys were like, "That's what it is." and then Black Swan came out, and then they're like, okay, well then let's use this mathematical equation you guys got. Boom, it's destroyed. That's why the globe Earth. That's why QE and Nathan jumped on the Black Swan, saying that is death. Like what do you say? Bye ball, because it's no
No,
longer can be a ball. No, you can say no all you want.
refraction. Well, refraction's been part of the argument all along, ever since I've been here.
That's not true. That's not true.
No, not at all, bro. You're wrong. Maybe you
That's
got to the
literally not
party
true.
late. You got
I
to the
said
party
ever
late
since
and
I've
left
been
them.
here. I said
Well,
ever
how long
since
have you
I've
been
been
here,
here.
Weapon?
Oh, okay.
It changed. It did change. So yeah, I don't know. Were you here in 2015, 16,
20
17? Maybe not.
2017, I think, is when I came in.
Yeah, well, it's 15 and 16 was even different than 17 and 18. Yeah, because they caught on to a lot of things.
And it wasn't even mass adopted until like 19-ish into 20. Like
The Isle of Man, wasn't it?
it
What would you
became like
say?
the standard response for all Globers, like 2019, 2020, when Black Swan was like really shoved up to the front. And I think that was 2020, but I don't remember. But that's when it became. Now, if there's someone that's new to the conversation, that's like the first thing that they learn to say. And that 100% was not the case before that, because I was just always shown like any picture of the horizon, like that's proof the Earth's a globe. We're looking at the curve right there. That's the actual curve. And it quickly turned into you never see the actual curve. And
But it
there's
was the
all
Isle
those
of Man
refractions.
where it came in, wasn't it?
No.
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I
that
sit
was
in on that many Isle of Man hours. When Oakley
was
when
Isle of Man
okay, I'm talking
constantly.
when Oakley smacked his child on mic and stuff, I was in on that and all that. That's when refraction started becoming the thing to talk about regarding the geometric horizon.
Yeah,
I
but they had to
remember it
adapt it
being
multiple times. What APOC originally brought up is how they changed it, which was there was a change in there. So,
Which is funny because that's not the narrative that the mainstream pushes. That's not the narrative that most of these Globers push now. Like, how does that jive with the fact that flat Earth is so stupid and easily disproven that these crazy, stupid flat Earthers somehow have made this allegedly thousands of year old knowledge base change and update? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And that absolutely did happen. That absolutely did happen. I watched it happen, specifically with the geometric horizon, because this whole talking point that you never see the actual curve of the Earth, you never see the actual geometric horizon, that was the exact opposite of the original claim.
right.
Yeah, and we
Or
have.
that was the curve. That was it.
Yep.
So
And
they
we
just
have.
stuck it. They just showed it, and it was basically that kind of vibe. Like they just it was that was like the forceful remark is that is the curve, and then we had to spend years like even just debating on the basics of how that can't be the curve, and then finally they were like, oh yeah, you're right, it's not the curve.
Yeah,
Well,
now they still do it though, right? So now, like,
it's the
you'll have
effects
a
of the
Glober.
curve. It's the
Yeah,
effects
but
of
yeah,
the curve.
like a Glober will still show a picture that like they think is closer to what the globe would predict, and they say it's proof of a globe. And it's like, wait, what's proof of a globe? Is that the actual geometric curve? No, you can never see the actual geometric curve. How is this proof of the globe then? If I come back tomorrow and it moves, then like it can't be proof of the globe, right?
Yeah, I know that's all the back and forth, but damn, let's don't talk about it. It's talked into the
No,
ground.
I'm just laying out like how even they still
I
do
know.
kind of now make the original claim.
But the
what if
thing that
this was the topic for the next 3 hours? What if this was the topic?
I just backed my truck in at the home yard, so I'm fixing to drop. But the question is, and this is what y'all are going to be faced with this 24-hour sun. It's an observation that's exactly predicted by the globe model, and it's like how are you going to be able to, within your own mind, justify ignoring that fact, though? I mean, and that's what
I'd like to
they're going to throw at you.
respond to that, Flame.
No, let me respond because I brought up why they said
Okay,
they're
go ahead.
they're not gonna see the
I got
24 hour.
you.
They're gonna say they never said the 24-hour sun was out there. This is the reason why, because they're gonna see the daylight. We're gonna see daylight, and then
No, I'm talking about they're going to see the sun. If you see the
hold on.
sun,
I
though.
understand that, but this is the reason why I'm saying that they're gonna say that never said that there was gonna be a 24-hour sun. This is the reason why there's gonna be daylight. The sun's not gonna be recorded up there. This is my assumption, right?
that the sun is not going to be recorded. It's not be nowhere in sight. But they are going to say, well, the light is up there. It's daylight out there, so the sun has to be somewhere.
But that's not my question, though.
Yeah, I understand,
Let's
but that's
let's assume it is going to be, and it is, and y'all go down there, and there it is, and
Yeah.
the what's going to be put on your plate is going to be this is the globe model, and how are you going to combat that?
The question is
the
it
same question can be
exclusive? Just
the same
two
question
words.
can be. Sorry.
Is it exclusive? It would have to be exclusive to the globe to even be meaningful.
I want to make this point though. I want to make this point. Left line, listen to this. Listen. I made the same point to Jared. The same exact thing can be said the other way for like 1,000 things. So basically, like this question of like, am I just gonna think it's a globe? So like, there's this prediction that the globe makes, then we see it, therefore globe, which is affirming the consequent, of course. But it's like how are you gonna reason with that? You mean like I would actually have to get rid of hundreds of other examples the other way to rock with the globe because of the observation of the sun. And we can just start naming the examples. The globers do the same thing. So when you say, how would you deal with that? Well, obviously you would just try to come up with some type of explanation as to how it could happen. That's what the globe does. For example, when we shot radio waves over the ocean and they were supposed to be blocked at like 100, 150 miles, and they went 2,200 miles, line of sight, first attempt successfully, exactly like a flat earth would predict. If you had a flat earther and a glober there, the glober would have said, you can't shoot that radio wave 2,200 miles over the ocean. The curve of the earth's going to block it. The flat earther would have said, actually, you can. Just shoot it line of sight. It's just a large flat body of water. You can send that signal horizontally. And then exactly what the flat earth predicted happened, right? And what did the globe do? They started coming up with they didn't even have that idea at the time. You're making my point. They had to come up with the idea to try to figure out how to explain how that could happen on a globe. Right? So
But we can do it today, though.
And they adapted and just came up with more refraction, and then just called it the effect of the horizon, etc. So
radio waves is refraction.
It was an adaptation that in that case the
we do it today,
position had to take.
The explanation for radio waves isn't refraction, is it?
How do you guys not see the point here? The point is that the globe had to come up with an idea. They didn't test anything. Oliver Heaviside literally theorized an idea, just made it up. There was no evidence of it other than assuming something had to be happening. Okay, he made it up. You can try to now claim that, we know it's true now, whatever you want to say. The point is that at the time, it wasn't expected to happen. It was a flat earth prediction. It wasn't a globe earth prediction. The globe earther then had to come up with a reason how it would happen on a globe earth as well. So when you ask the question about the sun, the answer is the same. If you wanted to explain the phenomena, you'd have to come up with some type of way that it would happen on a flat earth as well. That is one of many examples. So if you now respond with all the excuses or claims about how it could happen on a globe, that isn't doing anything but furthering my point. And that's the point I'm making to even Jared.
But go ahead, Pez.
Yeah, because you have to take all things into consideration. Yeah, that's what I say. Like everything goes in its own place. Like curvature is in curvature, motion is in motion. You can't just make leaps and jumps and assumptions just because one thing fits a model. And if it doesn't correlate with all of the evidence, then it's really not useful in terms of getting to the truth.
But when they evaluated radio waves bouncing onto the ionosphere, which is their justification for why radio waves went so far, they didn't just fire them across horizontally and then think, oh, okay, that's the way it works. They bounced them at all angles and measured the incident reflections at different points on the Earth. They didn't just do it across the horizon. They did it up. They did it at 45 degrees, 12 degrees, and they have a perfectly justifiable model for how you can bounce radio waves in any direction. So they didn't just say, oh, they went further across the horizon, therefore it's the ionosphere.
No, that's objectively what they did. That's objectively what they did.
Well,
yes, his name is Oliver Heaviside. That's objectively what they did.
But Witsit, you can't deny they haven't evaluated it and said, okay, let's bounce them at 45 degrees and see what happens. Let's bounce them at 12
Okay,
degrees.
so we can then evaluate the sun then, huh? So then now we can go to different parts in Antarctica and we can make different... Okay, so you're making my point stronger. Okay,
why?
Which is that there was a globe Earth prediction, a flat Earth prediction. The actual evidence matched the flat Earth prediction. The globe Earthers had to come up with some explanation how it would happen on a globe, although not originally predicted based on the geometry of the globe. Now you're trying to claim, which is actually not true, by the way, because I've read all the literature about it. They claim the ionosphere actually changes altitude, changes frequencies, is inconsistent. We still don't the ionosphere. That's
none
the
of that's
modern
true.
2024 top level of academia answer. Objectively, they claim the altitude of the ionosphere changes, that the frequency changes, that some of the frequencies get through, some of them don't, etc. Not the point, though. The point was that they had to come up with an explanation. Another example is geocentrism, right? It's like, okay, geocentrism said, okay, we're going to look out into deep space with these new telescopes. We're going to see that everything in the universe moves around us. The heliocentric model said we're going to see everything moving in random ways because we're
Come
just
on,
tucked
man.
away in
Come
insignificant
on
corners.
with it. Come on with it.
No, because it's such a gross amount of intellectual dishonesty for you guys to not acknowledge the point that I'm making right now. It's gross double standard. In your opinion, if there's one observation that the globe predicts and you don't think there's currently a flat Earth position for, that sums up the whole conversation. End of story. Earth's the globe. But when the same thing has happened the other way around hundreds of times, whatever excuse your team can come up with automatically becomes true, whether that's dark matter, dark energy, magic fairy dust, magical refraction that we can't actually quantify, magical malleable ionosphere that changes altitude, whatever you can call it. Oh, the core is slowing down and going the other way. Whatever theory you come up with becomes true
Scared
overnight.
of a response.
Dark
No,
matter
no.
was by far the worst one too.
You guys gotta learn
Because
to let
now
somebody finish speaking. Yeah, I had to try to mute these guys in the middle. Guys, you guys gotta chill. I know that you might really trigger you or whatever it is. I'm not trying to be rude by saying that, but for real, I had to mute Left Lane and Pazzer. Just let him finish his point, man. You don't have to just. I mean, that just makes for like we're not. It's very disruptive when someone does that. We're trying to let everyone finish their points. So yeah, Witsit, those are very strong points. It was so strong that they had to blurt and interrupt. So it's just annoying because it takes more mod work. So he's finished now. If you'd like to respond, go ahead.
You're right. They couldn't understand initially why radio waves went too far, and they evaluated the situation and they worked out what was going on.
But his point was about the
corroborated-
24-hour sun. His point was, okay, well, maybe you weren't right on where it was at. Did you follow his full point?
Yeah, why we would do the same thing? Why wouldn't Flat Earth do the same thing with the sun?
Great, that's what I'm saying. You're going to have to do that, aren't you? I'm not arguing.
Well, we
you have to do
haven't
that.
got the actual evidence and observation yet, have we?
No,
So we haven't even gotten
no.
to that. We haven't even gotten to that step yet. We haven't gotten to the step of the radio waves not doing what the globe model predicted yet. And then they now have the evidence they have to account for. We're actually just now about to go in 1 week to get that evidence, see if it actually exists. And then only at that point would we actually need to explain it. You guys are painting it that the second we see the sun, it proves the Earth's a globe. It's blatantly a double standard. If you apply the same standard both ways, you would realize that your model has required ad hoc explanations that to this day haven't been verified for dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of evidence. This goes to show that you guys have a bias in this conversation. You cannot apply equal standards on both sides.
I don't, Witsit, because I don't say that a 24-hour sun in Antarctica proves the Earth is round. It's an evidence.
I think it's fair to say that we're biased, though. Like,
sure, we're all
I think
biased.
it's not very often when a flat Earth is like, here's some proof that I'm like, oh, let me see how the Earth might be flat. I'm like, let me see what mistake they've made today, and I think it's the same on the flat Earth's side.
Yeah, but the thing is
flat
that what he's
earthers are
saying is
dishonest
that okay, not everybody has said that there is one sun that circles Polaris on a Gleason's type layout. So that's one thing. Not everybody who has a perspective that the Earth is at rest and it's stationary, and then also if they have the planar geometry, not all have made like some kind of definitive claim though about that the sun. Whereas the globe has made the definitive claim about what the sun is and how the sky works. So that is obviously one thing. So when making these large generalizations, that's a whole factor. Nonetheless, Witz is pointing out a very important point that the globe model has actually made several times where the observations did not match what their model was, and then they've had to make ad hoc things. So I think his main point, it's like, okay, if somebody was asserting one sun circling Polaris, for example, in that case, and if they went to the south and they knew they were at 80 south or whatever, and they can validate that the sun did go behind them, then yes, for that perspective, it would make sense that that person would have to reconsider and just but the point is that for if a globe Earth individual is trying to like because it seems like there's like a whole like boatload of mud getting ready to be slung, you know, like a lot, like a lot of the globe earth, it's just ready. They're just ready with shovels to go. So it's like, and I think like, I feel like that's kind of the tension in the moment right now of what that is. And it's just, the point is like Left Lane came in with that kind of like a little bit of that energy, and not fully, but I'm just saying a little bit of that, like, how are you going to explain it? But the point is that when the globe models had to do it on the horizon, on dark matter, which are the two that were mentioned, and many other things, it would make more sense for their position to at least have compassion and understanding if there's the person that says it's one sun circling around, you know, to give them the same courtesy as they expect everyone else to take when it comes to changing how the geometric horizon works, or how dark matter works, or how all of these other factors that have had to been re-explained, as it were, over time.
I think the ones that have been re-explained that's a fair criticism, but they are predictions we make. Like, to me, science or learning about the world, like, forget science, just learning about the world, a good way to do that is make predictions, then test those predictions. To make a prediction and then test it and find out, we were wrong. That's the purpose of doing it. But testing if there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica is, if you follow the normie script, like we have, you know, we've done it hundreds of years, you know, or 100 years ago with Bird. We've got Shackleton went down there. People have been inside the Arctic Circle and recorded these things. So it's different. When we say, we've got to move around the ether model to make way for relativity, we do that because we made a prediction that was wrong. Whereas at this stage, if there isn't a 24-hour sun, that's a lie we've told. It's not a bad prediction. It is that people have gone to the southern region, claimed to have seen a 24-hour sun, and flat lied about that. And I think that's a fair difference. Would you agree, Gio? Last bit is just a question. Would you agree, Gio, people have moved their position or changed what they say in order to back away from claims that this does answer? So the model aside, people were saying, why can't we go below the 60th parallel? Why can't we check these things for ourselves? I want somebody standing under the Southern Cross and filming the sun going around, and it's sus we don't have that proof. And now that this is on the horizon, joke intended, suddenly now they're saying it won't tell me anything. Do you think that some people have switched their position?
Well, who of us is allowed to go beside Witsit?
If that question was directed at me, I mean, I don't know if we're going into all those different areas in terms of discussion. Those would all have to be discussed. I don't really speak for anyone else. So, I mean, whatever people have or haven't said on their channels or their shows and different things that are going on, obviously, I don't speak for them. So I think it's greatly over-exaggerated in general from that claim. But I think, and there's a lot of like straw men and misunderstandings. Like when people say you can't go freely explore, that doesn't mean that they're also saying that people can't go there in general, and do go there and have been for years and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of nuance to all of that.
Some people have changed their position though. That seems like you're avoiding answering.
I'm not really interested. I don't really care about. Well, I just don't really. You know that phrase, like, what is that quote where it's like, you know, it's the idea that like great minds actually think about the idea as the truth. You know what I mean? Versus, you know, where it's like the idea. It's like the quote that's like, yeah, or it's like, well, it's sort of like a weaker energy is to like harvest on someone else's, like what you think they said or how you think they're changing it's like focusing on drama of that person's perspective. I'm just more interested in the actual ideas themselves, the truth, the actual intellectual, rather than what did this guy think or what did he say or what did he said someone said or whatever. So in general, however, I'm open to. I'm not really aware of any of like the content creators over the years really changing anything too dramatically with this. So
yeah, I mean, I could give you an answer. I mean, they have not changed their position in shows. They always said that we can't freely explore. Now, y'all always mentioned, well, there's people that go there, and we always say yes. They'll take them to a certain location. That's about it.
I agree that people have said that we can't freely explore. And that is usually associated with the discussion that is about the celestial phenomenon we should see on a ball and shouldn't see if all verticals are parallel, i.e. the surface of water is flat. The one that we, and the freely explore by itself is uninteresting unless you are going there to do some test or observation. What I'm saying is, freely explore aside, this is a test or observation that does answer those questions. And I think it is clear that at least Eric Dubé and David Weiss have done a complete 180 on this, and that you can just pull up old tapes. And I agree with what you're saying, that this sounds like mudslinging, Gio, but the point then becomes about the mindset of seeking truth and going, why, essentially, should we test our beliefs? Should we make predictions and then test them in order to find out we might be wrong?
Obviously, you should, because you have a belief and you have a knowing.
Yeah, so we need to test it, and it looks like it's a method of avoiding testing things.
Well, that's actually well. Hold on, I kind of like didn't hear all of what you had said there. I only listened to parts, but I did hear the last part there. But like, dude, well, that's exactly what Witsit has said. Is part of the reason he wants to go is to actually see what occurs there. So, is to actually like that's pretty much seems like a lot of the reason, because otherwise it seems like it's a major inconvenience for his life on many levels. There's the stress and whatever involved. There's these other characters that seem to have some kind of like paparazzi level harassment of like, even beyond that though, of level of like attack going on. So like he seems to be like, what he said is like pushing through all of that because he wants to know. So
I've got mad props for Witsit. If you're still here, mad props to you. I've said it before. I think you should be planning some tests, but for just going, I think is absolutely in line with the ideology.
Yeah, but you see, you don't want ideology, you want real knowledge. And you see, if you're in a position of asking questions, you are not knowing. Thus, you are asking questions. Asking questions indicates dissociation from knowing. So you see, the reason why the entire enterprise becomes a satanic ordeal is because you are not in alignment, or you are out of alignment, and you seek alignment. And the line of questions is an attempt to get in alignment.
I don't think this is the subject.
The reason why you're afraid of using the words such as God and deny God is because you have a hard time realizing that everything is God.
All right, so back to the top. I hear you. Thank you. Back to the topic. I just was going to say, like, the thing is, if they go and they completely see a 24-hour sun, absolutely, they film it. It's there. It is what quote unquote the globe predicts, as it were. I don't see any way in which somebody asserting that a Gleason's or azimuthal equidistant map with one sun that circles Polaris, that would, like with one sun. Now that sun, that if it's a reflection, or there could be another electromagnetic effect, or if there's additional suns or something, then obviously that, you know, there's many other ways. I mean, those are just like a few general things. But what I'm saying is one sun, like the thing we call the sun, if it's always at a GP right above the ground, for that layout, for the Earth to be that layout, as Jaren's gone over a million times in his videos and drawn it out and everything, it's just not geometrically possible, not with one sun. But there could be many, many other options of what could be going on a planar surface in which that that effect could occur. But that would definitely change things a lot, though, because we always consider the sun as one thing, like it's the sun. You know, it's not like suns kind of a thing. So, I mean, and if there were more than one sun, there would be like a split off point where like the main sun that continues going around the Gleason's map would have to split off from another one that would then refract around the outer corner or the outer rim or edge, as it were. So whether that, however that effect is occurring, but like, is there a point at which those split, like off the ocean, like, you know, like off of like west of like Punta Arenas, like if you just went west in the ocean, is there some point at the deep 60 parallel south, if you went out there, you would actually see the main sun and it would keep going on its way, and then the other one would go to start wrapping around Antarctica? I mean, that would be wild if that was shown, but that would change things entirely. And of course, it is in that spot of the deep southern oceans that like is where we have like the least data of what's there. Now, I'm not claiming this is the case. I'm just saying geometrically, something like that in that case. So I mean, if whether or not people go with their testimony in their video that they have or not, or even if they need to go there for themselves, but I mean, if that is indeed 80 south and it is in terms of the direction and all of that and where it is, then yeah, I think the only thing that really puts an issue to is the Gleason's or azimuthal equidistant type of a layout with the continents all coming out planar with just one sun that circuits Polaris. And so
I think that's a good point and a bold thing to say as well. I think that the point that's sort of that Left Lane might have been talking about that I was is for people who refuse to take a position. I think it's fair that you and Jaren does, and I think you do too, Witsit. What's your position on the what it would mean to see the sun go around you? I think he's gone.
Just like the main, like kind of the whole mainstream depiction of it on like Dave's app would be wrong.
Right.
For example, So wait, do you think it would? So would you use the word falsify? That it would falsify at least that general layout?
Yeah, because like built into it is people claim like it's just where we see it. The only way you could like salvage that is to like explain like an optical effect or something. And I saw a video yesterday that was trying to do that. I didn't have time to fully watch it, but like to make it, yeah, like it would falsify kind of like this main depiction with the AE map and just the circle, the sun going in a circle, and we seeing it where it is as it goes around us, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't
And
say
do you
all that
think,
extra part.
do you think the south could be the center then? Could like just flip the AE map so it's centered around Antarctica? Would that work?
No, because obviously we have the midnight sun in the north, you know.
Yeah, so it's like two centers.
Like, yeah, so I mean, obviously I've seen people try to float the idea of like this the magnetic field. You know, the magnetic field, like magnetohydrodynamics, you'll have the
Two
two
poles.
rotations. Yeah.
Right.
You know, trying to lay out all the continents is tricky, but I will say I do realize that it's kind of a major assumption people make that we have a really good grasp of how the continents are laid out. We actually don't. Like we have a general grasp of it. We have like a general idea of the direction you head. And when you talk
got a
about like
pretty good
traversing,
one.
see, I disagree, you know, because when
where
you
would you
really
say
look into it,
we've got it most wrong? Because I've done a big trip across it. You've traveled a fair bit too. Where would you say we've got it the most wrong?
well, just like when if you think about what happens when you actually travel, right? This is the part that this is what I mean by the assumption. We skip over this assumptively, but when you actually travel, like say you're going to travel really far in a plane, it's like they say, okay, it's going to take 13 hours to get here. You're like, okay, whatever. You go to sleep. If it takes 12 hours, you don't even think twice about it. If it takes 11 and a half hours, you don't think twice about it. And so then the way that plane is tracking where it's going from their perspective is it's like GPS. So the GPS has like the conclusion built in, you know, it's like the continents are here, and then we're going to run through the spherical coordinate system to tell you where you are. So it's like we're kind of trapped within this assumptive layout in pretty much every way that we travel. The only way you'd ever be able to tell a difference if it was such a great difference that if you traveled far enough, there'd be a great time difference. And you know, when you really start looking into stuff like that, there are great time differences when people travel, and it's just because there are like other variables, like the plane has to go at a lower altitude, the plane has to veer off its original route a little bit, or whatever it is.
Or we can go though from planes to something more like I've done a lot of it by motorbike. So there's like particularly if you go like from Australia, it is 1 day sail north, like a hour's flight north, and we can tell if we're going north, right, to Indonesia. And then Indonesia is a series of islands where you can see the next one from each one you're at. So traveling over short spits of water and land, it gets to Malaysia. And then from there, it is contiguous landmass all the way to France, right, and Spain. And then there's a break before the Americas. So I could see that you might be able to split the Americas some distance, but you can't do it with Europe. Would you agree? You can't do it with like anywhere between all the way to Indonesia. I would even say Australia to Europe. All of that has to be where it says it is in the right distances because people
So you
Um,
can do it between Asia and
a lot.
Soviet Union.
I think it's like there are parts of it that would have to be much closer to accurate, but like if you're just starting to see if you're slightly moving things around, it has like a domino effect, right? Because we're always like what you're saying right there is you're kind of going based on like the previously known landmass. So it's like when you leave Australia, you go seemingly this direction, then you see this, see this, see this. Well, it's like okay, where you originally came from? What if you were wrong about exactly how that was positioned? So there's like a domino effect on the entirety of the layout. When you get to the south, it's like the south is like largely unverified as far as I can tell. Like we really don't have any idea. I think that in the north, we definitely have a general idea of the layout of the north.
You don't think that land masses in this both the northern and southern hemisphere comport to what is known as the longitudes in the sun and
No.
what is the noon and the transit of the sun across the surface?
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, because like the way that we actually determine the sun, right? Like if we determine sunset time, we actually use the apparent position in the mean time. Like if you actually were to go out on the Earth and be like, okay, the globe says I'm here on the Earth. The globe is this big. This is when the sun's going to set. You'll be wrong every single time. That's not like it's a well-known fact that you can't
You
do
won't be
that.
wrong
Moon.
about solar noon, though, will you?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
a
but
solar
I'd say
moon.
we don't know exactly the direction that the longitudes are going. They don't like
You
they're
can tell what
a little bit
north-south
different
is,
on each map. No, yeah, you can,
and they
but
go
not as
north-south.
perfectly as they act like. So
No, they've got to go
look,
to
they
due
say if we follow
north-south,
north, we go
definitionally.
next to the pole, and then loop around back to the pole. If we follow the compass, we loop back around to the pole itself. Like so, if you drew that out on a map, you'd get something like a double rotation. And then they also throw in Coriolis, like they say if you traveled from like Cancer to the North Pole, you'd wind up 1,000 miles to the right. So that's how they base their corrections on drawing up the globe, is saying if you just flew straight north, Earth rotation would put you 1,000 miles right. Well, why don't we just put it to where we're straight? So that positions the North Pole 1,000 miles left to where you had it. If there is no Earth globe making us do that, and we travel straight north and just travel where we would wind up straight north, that puts Hawaii way closer to Australia and stuff on the double rotation map. It does a lot of change. There's a lot of little things, man, that I think Austin's right. We don't have it as perfect down pat as people pretend, but it's
Didn't
pretty good.
understand
Yeah.
much of that. I didn't understand.
Well,
much
I
of
definitely
that.
don't ever bring this point up to Globers. I'll go ahead and tell you because the concept of this is it's the idea of such a fundamental rewiring of the understanding of the world, like that. I mean, like respectfully, right? Like people that can't truly entertain that actually we're in the center of the universe or something, you're going to tell them that like the entirety of the layout of the land that we travel on is wrong. They're just going to have kind of a visceral reaction to it. And like, I'm not even talking about you personally. I'm just saying because like it's very simple that we actually all heavily rely on GPS and specific systems that run through the presupposed model. And up until recently in human history, that wasn't the case, right? So it's like that, people assume that is verifying it, but it's not. It's like even McToon, that's what this, when I jumped in, that's what we
But I
first
don't
talked
think
about.
I don't think you've made a very good case that the layout might be different because the linchpin of your case was, but where we started off from, if we don't know where that was, then the whole dominoes fall down. But that's not how you map. You map going, I am home now. Home is just 0, 0 on this
Yeah, but
XY graph, and I'm heading from here north, so I'm going to draw north. And I know the distance between home and north. I don't need to know where I started. It can be necessarily agnostic to that.
Yeah, but I think like, oh, hold on, but
Distance between
I
home
think
and north.
the kind of general thing that I was thinking about as when he was talking about it though is like what we have access to. We meaning like the people, as it were, because yeah, you can measure like your on your local land like miles and this and that, but we're talking about like the actual layout of the continents. That's where there's a whole nother scenario involved there, and like with GPS and everything that's relied on, who's like independently measuring, then who's actually traveling to those regions. I kind of thought his point was more related to that in terms of like what we actually have access to that isn't just taking pre-assumed data from sources, as it were, that are claiming certain things versus what we've been able to, or what we even have access to validate.
I think that it's pretty simple. Like if you take short spots of land, like when I flew from Darwin to Dili, you know you're getting on a plane at the north of Australia because you rode your motorbike up here and the sun was setting to your west the whole time, and you know that you're on the plane for a very short amount of time, and you know that you're going north because again you know which way north, south, east, and west is. And you're going a short distance north, and then you get to East Timor that has a long history geopolitically with Australia, and even their native people.
But that's
Huh?
pretty local, though.
Because-
I understand what you're
because
saying.
they've got
I've flown
all these
places
monuments
like
with Australians there. My granddad's diary was about being a commando fighting the Japanese there, and I went town by town to the places he was fighting them at and retold the story. So if
Well,
my
before
granddad didn't
perfectly
do that
north,
shit,
what's your mechanism to judge that you're going perfectly north? But not contesting what you're saying, but just out of curiosity, what mechanism?
I guesstimate. Like I think the GPS does pretty well. My watch does it as well. But I just guesstimate. Like when I'm riding, if I want to know what's north, I just go, is it morning or afternoon? And then the sun needs to be either on my right or my left. And it's always going to be north of me in the southern hemisphere, and it's always going to be
What
south of me in the
mechanism does
southern hemisphere.
GPS use?
Can I say something when there's a
But
minute?
eggshells. Well, like eggshells. Let me just say though. But see, the thing is like a planar surface Earth with the continents coming out from the center does fit with the fact that the sun will go over, Africa, South America, etc. That it moves in that fashion. So unless there's, there's some other kind of like a square map or a Pac-Man thing or some other thing. But I'm just saying, in terms of the planar, hold on, let me just finish. Hold on. In terms of the planar coming out from the center like that compared to a globe, there's already, just between those two, there's already contentions about the landmass layout in terms of in the South specifically, where there's much larger distances between continents and all that. What you're referring to is like somewhat more like local distances, I would say, and not really quite like the actual positioning of the continents laid out over the masses and masses of water versus, taking puddle jumpers here and there. And I agree though. I mean, I've flown many times and I've had the directional sense of where I'm at and whatnot. And it does make sense that I'm tracking the earth in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. That's charitable of you to say, and that's all I'm saying is like if we do puddle jumper flights and ferries, I did a lot of it, and by motorbike navigating it myself for the rest of it, I am now super confident on the distances and bearings one all the way from Sydney, which is pretty far south, and I've gone further south than here, all the way to London, and that locks all of Asia and all of Europe in one piece. Right, that says one human can confirm that's where it's meant to be, and we've got 7 billion of us or something. So I think that
also,
you can have a massive
the
landmass, like you change the distance between London to New York, maybe, but you can't move any of Europe all the way, to Australia, and that's a lot.
Yeah, he already said the north is pretty set, but I think
Trouble
ultimately,
About was trying to get in. Trouble About was trying to get in.
Yeah.
Go for it, Trouble.
We should.
Well, I was just saying, like the difference between the AE map and the flat map and the globe is the south is massively distorted. So when you do these flights that you were talking about, west or east in the north compared to the south, yeah, there might be a bit of an hour's discrepancy, but in the south there would be like 5 hours discrepancy, 6 or 7 or maybe 10, depending how far you went. If you just do you get so. The distortion
Are
would
you
be
sure about those
way
5
more
hours?
noticeable. Well, how much bigger is the South on a flat map version to a globe? Would
I
you say
don't
3
have a
times
flat
bigger,
map
5
of the
times
world.
bigger?
Yeah,
So
it's
5
about,
times bigger?
have a flat map
Australia
of the
gets
world.
about twice as wide. If you don't need a flat map, you just need to use logic and say longitude lines run perfectly north-south and they are time. If it emanates from a central point, then all of those timelines must be radial. They must keep getting further and further and further apart, as they appear to do up until the equator. And all the difference between the two models is, if the north is the center and all verticals are parallel, then they must keep getting wider. And if there are 2 centers and we're on a globe, then they should start converging to a point again. And so you can just do it mathematically. You don't need a map. And that stretches things, and that makes Australia twice as wide as we think it is, despite
you're describing it like describing it like if you centered it over the equator by the meridian. That's pretty much how you're describing it.
So what if they
the equator's
don't?
where it's equal,
what if
right?
they-
Equal distance, equal days.
What if they just stretch the oceans though and don't contort the continent?
Well, then they've got to stretch them. Like, let's say they're trying to fix the flight time, which is, Perth to LA, which is 18 hours. If they fix that side, they make the other side worse. And if they fix, they stretch us apart, regularly you see them try to do that. And we end up, tens of thousands of miles from New Zealand. And we're like, well, I don't think a plane is going supersonic speeds to get me to Auckland. It seems like it's going the same speed it does when it takes me to Melbourne.
Yeah, seems like the same speed. I did the math on it the other day, east, west, north, south in Australia flight times. It's about 7% off.
Yeah, it should be double.
Well, it should be double. I had to factor in taxiing times on the planes, etc. But I don't know what their flights speeds are in the air. and I'm sure that they would take set speeds every time they're going north, south, east, west.
No,
Now,
they'll
I'm not sort of
different planes, or I can help you out with that because I work with the airline industry. Different airlines will do different things. So Qantas will charge more but spend fuel to get you there on time, whereas low cost carriers like Jetstar are like, nah, if we took off late, we're still flying at standard speed to get you there. I think it's much. There's also the problem with like Sydney is a lot of waiting time sometimes. Particularly if there's wind because it's right next to the ocean. So if they're down to one runway, that will mean any route that's very north-south that includes Sydney is going to get extra minutes. Sorry, east-west. That's going to get extra minutes added to.
Hey, I got a question. So when the flight goes to one of the locations and then it flies back to the original location, why does it take different times?
I don't know, different reasons, because it's trying to make up time, because it's got a tailwind. You know, I don't know, but I don't expect it to be exactly the same. But
well, if it were one of those answers, if it was one of those answers, wouldn't it go back and forth as to which route takes longer? Because it's always one way takes. It's almost every time I've looked at it, it's one way takes like anywhere from an hour and a half, 2 hours, up to like 3.5, 4 hours longer. And of course, in the globe, the globe paradigm is just the same distance. So, like, I guess in any situation, I guess you could claim it should be the same distance if you're going back and forth. But the point is that the whole globe argument is that the proof of the globe is specifically the distance, and therefore the time. Okay, the point is that in any scenario, you're going to have to invoke something like jet streams to explain that significant of a difference in time.
And then they would have to be consistent jet streams, always in the same place, because they always fly in the same routes usually. Although they might deviate.
The flat Earth predicts and needs to show is that flying east or west is significantly longer than flying a comparable distance north or south. Not that it changes going east to west, because that doesn't favor. Like, let's say it does. Let's say we suddenly find out it's like 5 times longer to get west. What have we learned? Which model does that favor? It blows. It's weird for the globe, but it doesn't help flat either. Right?
Now, what we learned is it completely falsifies the claim that it proves the globe, because when you actually go look at the data, it'll say that the plane was going the same speed both ways. Right? But they couldn't be because the time is significantly different. So what we know is that they could be clocking the same airspeed, so the plane could go 550 both ways. And normally it says about 550, but it actually measures its airspeed relative to the static pressure around the plane.
The question is, how does this help flat Earth?
Hold on, let him finish, dude.
Meaning, if it was in a jet stream going, and the jet stream was going 250 miles an hour, the airspeed of the plane would still say 550, even though the actual ground speed of the plane would be 550 plus 250, right? It would be 800. So pretty clearly what I'm saying is this argument that on a flat Earth it would have to take way longer, and then the flat Earther says, well, you could go much further if you were in a jet stream, and then the globe says, nuh-uh. Right. And then we point out, wait a minute, even in the globe paradigm, you're going to have to invoke jet streams for these flights, because when you actually go look at the data, one way takes way longer than the other. It's pretty simple.
Yep.
So able to modulate that through jet streams, and
I just
but that would still be, so would they still be like tricking the pilots though, or who's being tricked in there, like to be able to know that they're actually doing like an 800 ground speed, but then because they're in the jet stream, they're only picking up the 550. Like,
well, I think that the pilots are just told to fly at a certain altitude, and so if the jet streams are known to be at a certain altitude. Now, I've never spoken to any of the very few pilots that are flying those couple flights that are always invoked. You know, it's like always talked about, like it's like 20 a day, or it's not. So there's only a few pilots that I've never spoken to them, right? I don't know, but I wouldn't think they'd even think there's anything malevolent going on. They're just like, if they know there's a jet stream, they know there's a jet stream, and they catch it. If they don't, then they're just going to fly at the altitude that they're told to fly at. And largely, this is autopilot at this point, right? So the autopilot. I actually looked into this. So the autopilot is designed to minimize air resistance. right? And so like naturally what the plane is always doing is it's determining its exact direction and altitude based on minimal air resistance. So if there's a jet stream you can catch, then the plane is going to take you up to that because that's going to be calculated as really effectively negative air resistance. And then if you're going back the other way, when there's wind coming towards you, then the plane's going to tell you to duck below that altitude. And I'm just making up the specifics. It could be above or below or whatever. The autopilot literally minimizes air resistance. So if there's a jet stream, the autopilot is automatically going to take the plane to where the wind is going to aid it.
How does the autopilot know?
Point still stands. Even if that's true, the point still stands. The globe challenge is that what east to west should be almost twice as much distance as north to south. So
okay, so
that's the thing that needs to be shown.
Okay, let's think about
to support the idea that the north is the center.
Right,
if test it this way.
The jet streams go east to west, though. A lot of them. Well, they go both, but they make that spiraling pattern. That's the thing. They're not really going north to south in the same way, so it's not the same.
That's true. That's valid. If we can show that they are enough to do that, fine. And they're affecting planes in one direction so much that they can, get extra time and put that into the route back. Sure.
Well, they are though. Like eggshells. I want to know what you honestly think about that, right? Because I've never hear a glober address like. So this is one of those. You have to understand the flat earthers' perspective. It's like, okay, the globers make this argument, and then they're just satisfied. They tap out immediately. They're like, aha, proof, ha ha ha, and for 5 years they just don't look any further. Flat earthers are like, that is kind of perplexing. I see what the globers are saying, so in good faith, I'm going to go try to look into this. We go investigate, and what do you know? We find that despite the fact that if you go to 24/7 flight radar, it'll say that both of those planes are flying at the same speed. When you actually go look at the times of the flights, one direction is significantly longer than the other direction. Okay, so now on its face, the globers' arguments were wrong. That doesn't mean that their conclusion's wrong, but what they were saying is wrong. Now, they never come back and adjust it. They never lead with, now there are actually jet streams in these flights that are drastically changing. Then they omit it. They go introduce this idea to a new, fresh audience, tactically omitting this information, right? And so what we have discovered is that there has to be pretty significant jet streams at play in these like two flights, really it's like two flights that are always brought up. Right. So if we can get to that part, can you just like acknowledge that part that based on the simple idea?
Absolutely. There could be jet streams that make up for this, I think they would have to sort of lie about their takeoff times or something, but they absolutely could do that and go, oh, this flight's, standard delayed or something like that, or we're boarding early today or something. It's entirely possible. I think it's incredibly improbable for the reasons.
Wait, why would they have to lie about anything?
No, it would be the ground speed that they would be lying about.
Yeah, but speed.
Nothing to do with takeoff time. It's just it's the ground speed.
Speed has a time as a component, right? Guys, I listened for like 3 minutes and then I got 2 words in. Speed affects time.
You just immediately strawmanned it.
But right,
you
if they're doing a faster route, that means they take off late and arrive at the same time, or take off the right time and arrive early. Correct?
No.
Come on.
No,
guys.
you're not. You seem to not be understanding.
Holy
I had higher hopes. The way Witsit laid that out, I was ready for like a really good moment there. But it didn't quite
absolutely
happen.
Works. The jet streams absolutely work to speed up and slow down flights, but it still has to change your takeoff and landing time. Otherwise, you lose all of the time circling in the air, not landing, so you land at the we're not get any benefit from the.
We're not mad at
early.
Eggshell.
This is
that moment where like
times are different.
This is that moment where a small concession goes a long way.
Yeah, the actual reported times are different. Let's just make sure that we're on the same page here.
Address the point I'm making. Maybe I'm wrong.
We are. I'm trying to. You don't seem to understand this part of it, which is that it's openly acknowledged that the times are different. It isn't like hidden. No one's lying. No one's tactically delaying takeoff to make it look like they're the same. You can go right now. Just go look at the flights. Look at the data. It will tell you one flight took 2.5 hours longer than the same flight the other way. Okay, there's nothing hidden here. It's open information. So that's why I keep going back to the globers and I say, wait, your original claim is not adding up. And let's now use our critical thinking. You can also go look at the data of those flights and it will say both planes were going the same speed. Okay, but speed equals distance over time. I'm almost done. Speed equals distance over time. So if we keep the same speed 500 miles per hour. And the distance is the same because we're going back and forth, but the time is different. Something's not adding up. Either the speed or the distance has to change. The distance can't change, which means we have to now say the speed changed and the speed being reported is incorrect. The only logical explanation for that, without invoking lying, right, is that, well, they're reporting airspeed. The airspeed is the same. If you were in a jet
They don't
stream, the
report
airspeed would be.
They report SOG, speed over ground.
They do not report ground speed. They absolutely do not.
That would be where the deception would have to be run if they're doing if there is something that they're pulling off. Yeah, that basically they know they're actually making a faster ground speed from some kind of. There would have to be some it could just be right built into the autopilot though. That would be wild. And if it's only those few flights and they're very highly autopiloted flights, which pretty much a lot of these ones are now, the big cross continental and all that, would it just be able to do it automatically? But that would be where some deception would have to occur, is that they basically have to be admitting that the time is different and then clocking, like you were saying, the actual airspeed. But then if they're maneuvering in a way that they're using the jet streams to actually, the guys behind it would know that they're actually doing a faster ground speed, but potentially the pilots wouldn't know. Or if it's only those few flights, those pilots could just be.
Okay, let me show you. Let me guys show you how to. Okay, we can solve this problem. You can Google fastest plane. You can Google plane. Just Google plane goes over 800 miles per hour. Okay, and this has happened multiple times. You'll find mainstream articles, and it's in the north where the jet streams are actually slower. Okay, so just Google plane goes over 800 miles per hour. It'll tell you, oh my gosh, plane caught a jet stream going over 200 miles per hour, and it went over 800 miles per hour. And that's because someone on the ground actually clocked the speed. They did clock the ground speed. Okay, now they weren't flying over hundreds and hundreds of miles of ocean. They were in the north. They were flying over land masses. They clocked the ground speed. It was over 800 miles per hour. You can just Google it. It's a well-known thing.
800 miles per hour sounds well within what a commercial jet does anyway. Sure you mean 800 miles an hour? Or maybe I'm wrong on that. I thought that was
no. They fly like like 650 for big planes or something. So, the point is, if you go track down that same flight on 24/7 flight radar and you go look at the data reported for it, it will tell you the plane was going at 550 or something, because it just reports airspeed.
How is that incrementally broken up? Because a plane varies in speed throughout its flight, correct?
Yeah, but the way that they determine that output that they give you, it's an average, and so they're just going to assume the distance, right? And then they're just going to give you the speed. So, but this is the point. There's no deception required for any of that, right? Like if the plane can't measure its own ground speed. So the plane is measuring its airspeed based on the air around it. If you're in a jet stream, the plane's going to say, we're going 500 miles per hour. Although in reality, outside of the jet stream, that plane is going 500 plus whatever the jet stream's going, because that's how airspeed works. That it measures based on this.
But wouldn't GPS pick that up?
Yeah.
If GPS was legit, so wouldn't
there? Well, good question. Yeah, good question.
Or just.
Well, that would have to be fudged, or there would have to be some distinction layer of that.
No, I told you if you're going in a headwind, GPS will tell you you're doing 200 knots, and if you catch a tailwind, you're doing 250 ground speed. Because of the tailwind, the GPS will tell you you're doing 250 knots.
Yeah, but
GPS has already got deceptions built. Regardless, GPS is going to have some deceptions built in. Like the GPS data is going through specific algorithms and corrections, and that's actually even been proven though. Like that, it goes through SAGNet corrections before the data is put out, and then that data is portrayed as raw data. And a university proved this, not a bunch of flat earthers. The university just went and pulled some raw data, and they were like, wait a minute, there are SAGNet corrections in here. So this wasn't actually raw data. So now, I'm not going to put anything past what all they could or couldn't do with the GPS data, right? Before
the point
we're given
remains the same. If their flight time is less, there is a pilot, and typically they just do the same route over and over again, right? For a set amount of time, and then they switch to a new route. So that what I'm forced to presume is there is a pilot who is traveling very fast in a tailwind both ways across from when he's doing the Sydney to Perth route. But according to what you're saying, one of those trips is far shorter than the other. but all of his instruments and readouts tell him he's going at the same speed he was this morning when he did the same route in double the time. And he's been doing
Not double,
that for
not
months,
double the
and there's-
time, but yeah.
Well, what kind of time discrepancy are you talking about?
Normally on like the it ranges actually, which makes sense because if the cause is jet streams, they change and it's based on altitude. But it's normally like say the flight's 11 hours one way, it'll be 14 hours the other way. Okay, like the highest I've ever seen is like a little over 4 hours, I think. But I also
Yeah,
I
so it
didn't just
requires that
look
I believe
forever
that-
because I'm not retarded. It proves the point. The point is that even the globe model, the globe proponent has to revise their claim to say that those flights utilize jet streams.
I mean, isn't it equivalent
If
to
you have
like
to make the
like
point one more
logic?
time, I'm just leaving.
Like, isn't the logic of it like it's equivalent to like you go to the airport and you walk on the floor that isn't moving, and like you could time yourself walking at a pace, and then you get on that floor that moves and you keep that same pace, but because that stream, aka the floor, is moving, you're still going the same speed, and your instruments aren't gonna tell you that you're going any faster. But that's that stream that's carrying you faster. Like, isn't that just logical? Like, can't we understand
but
that?
your
or no?
instruments
That
are
is a
telling
decent
you-
analogy. That is like that
your
because
instruments.
you can track
instruments
your
might not be
speed when
telling
you're when you're on the moving walkway. Like let's say you're going 5 miles an hour on ground speed, you could also just walk 5 mile an hour ground speed on the moving walkway. But the moving walkway is also going 5 in addition. So now you're going 10. But you're really just making. Although you do get more, you do get more wind resistance though. It's kind
But you have the instruments that calculate your. You have instruments that calculate your true speed due to the moving floor or how fast you're walking or whatever. Like you do have airspeed and ground speed indicators.
We need to be realistic about what pilots do in the 21st century. What they do is they go sit in their seat and they take off and then they get to chill. Largely they chill and then they land. Okay, this is what pilots tell me, brother. Like what the big secret
they say
is,
the plane flies itself.
yeah, that we could basically go to sleep, right? And then
Exactly.
But that's
so
not that doesn't equate to not knowing that you're like what you're proposing, as I just said, requires an answer. What this suggests is there's pilots whose speed over ground still reads the same amount and is boosted or whatever by the jet streams. It's not clear to me yet if they're seeing that or not. But it sounds like what you're saying is because I see an incorrect number in flight radar by my reckoning based on the speed, the pilot must be seeing that speed as well. It doesn't make sense to me. It sounds like they're getting their speed from two different places. One is averaging from takeoff and landing times, which, as I said, might include holding, and the other one is getting it over ground by lat and long by a GPS. And what it requires is that he sees that he's doing 500 miles an hour ground speed, both directions, but finds that there's a different time each time and has never in the history of aviation gone, this is super weird. Australia's twice as wide as they tell us, which is the most easy calculation to do because you just go, where's the actual ground? What's the speed at which the ground is passing? I don't need any instruments. I can look down.
Why do you keep saying Australia's twice as wide?
If the north is the center, then longitude lines must be radial. They must keep getting.
Well,
further
wait.
and
Let's
further
stay
from
on
one another.
topic. That's another topic.
Yeah, it's totally off
so
topic.
no, this is important though.
Same
This
topic.
all
It's the same
wrap-
topic
no,
we've been talking about the whole time.
Okay,
Australia being wider
all,
than when they tell us.
This all overlaps, right? Okay, because this always happens. People invoke GPS as if it is definitively accurate and true or something. That is not the case, okay? GPS, so the pilot doesn't have to be in on anything. He's flying a plane. Even if he looks at his GPS data, what is GPS doing? GPS is taking their signal, they're running it through SATNet corrections, actually, but they're running the signal through a longitude and latitude spherical coordinate system. So if they say this is the distance on the globe from this southern continent to this southern continent, known distance, however many thousand miles, now it's going to update you based on that spherical coordinate system. And if it's going to give you your speed based on that, it's going to keep that distance as the primary variable that gives you your speed. So even the output given to the pilot doesn't require some like malevolent deception or something. But I will say that it is way different trying to get your ground speed when you're flying over the ocean. Okay, you're not going to get your ground speed over the
That's why
ocean.
I'm talking about Australia. We can stay with Australia because it's a landmass. So, and this is the thing I keep saying. It keeps going to like bad data. right? It keeps looking at the foggiest photo. We've got good data on how wide Australia is because people drive it. And there's a train that does it weekly, and thousands of freight trains that run that route. So we've got methods other than by plane knowing it. But
well, I've also looked into this claim,
point.
Eggshells. I looked into this claim, and so because the claim is basically that since the north to south distance is basically the same as the east to west distance, right? So that then that's proof, right? Because we know that the distance is the same, whatever. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I went and looked at the plane flights, and actually the east to west flights.
I'm talking about the ground.
Oh, wait up. I'm still making a point. The east to west flights actually take longer than the north to south flights in Australia.
Show me that.
Okay, I will.
Twice as long. Show me. Go for it.
No, I didn't say. See, wait. See, this is what you do because that information doesn't completely jive with. You're jumping over to. It needs to be twice as. No. It's supposed to be the same. It's not the same.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be curious to see it.
Now let me make one more point. Now, okay, I'll go find it for you. Although I'm on my phone, and I don't just. Why would I lie about something like that? I brought it up, right? But this is the point. Now think about how there are east to west jet streams. Okay, so now if the plane's actually able to go a little bit faster east to west than it is north to south, and it's still showing a little bit longer, then you absolutely wouldn't expect it to see it be twice as long, would you, Eggshells? If the plane's actually going to go a little faster.
I agree with you. There's lots of murkiness to the plane argument because of the jet streams, which is why I keep saying, what about the people on the ground like me who've ridden across it on a motorbike? It would imply that when I'm driving west, I'm doing half the speed and I'm unaware of it, or so I'm going at 50 kilometers an hour, like down sort of like I do down suburban streets, rather than 100 kilometers an hour, like my bike can barely do that fast because it's basically a farm bike, east to west. Or that's one option. I'm unaware that I'm traveling twice as fast as I think I am. Or the other option is, at that place on Earth, if I started trying to measure nautical miles to kilometers, I would find they no longer maintain their relationship.
Okay, why would we talk about nautical miles when you're driving a motorbike? Now, this is
talking about longitude lines diverging, and that's
nautical miles don't apply to driving on the ground, though, for obvious reasons, because you're driving on a road. So this has also been investigated, actually, by the guy that does the the boat race or whatever. Does anyone know his name? Hendry, something like that. Hendry. He was on Taboos.
Al Raboni.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that he did was he actually investigated do the actual roads in Australia match the Google Maps, right? And so think about this. If, say, Google Maps is showing that there's tons of curves everywhere, but then when you're actually driving it, it's largely straight, then you could say the Google Maps could make it look like, well, your driving time is going to be way longer and the distance is going to be way greater, when in reality it's not going to be, right? When they actually investigated it, it did not match the Google Maps. It didn't match the Google Maps. So
I found Google Maps scarily accurate, and I've used it a lot. That's my main method of navigation.
Okay, there's actually video accompanying this test, though, and what I'm trying to
see one of these though, because you just keep invoking this, like, oh, that's been debunked with this video that I want.
You see how emotional you are, right? Because first you're claiming conceptual impossibility. Then when I actually provide specific conceptual rebuttal, instead of addressing it in good faith, you demand that I then sprint on demand to go get all the stuff. Wait up. Dude,
address what in good faith,
buddy?
You're saying that Google Maps is wrong in Australia. I travel by Google Maps in Australia.
Yeah, this just Eggshells. You're just kind of ruining the show.
It might have been old
Let's just move on.
Fuck off, his Eggshells ruining the show. Witsit hasn't provided shit this entire discussion.
Wait, can I finish what I'm saying? Hey, do you guys care if I finish what I'm saying?
Well, at the very least, hold on. We have to have no interruptions. Let's not mute. We don't have to. I don't want to have to mute people and stuff, but at the very least, have no interruptions. So at least that.
Yeah, can I just finish what I'm saying? Because I mean, I love you guys and all that, but I'm not gonna scream to talk, right? Like, my children are asleep. I don't have a door on my office. I'm not gonna scream to talk. Okay, so the point is, I will happily go get the information. I'm on my phone right now. Okay. So whether or not my claim is true and has evidence to back it is one thing, and you're certainly within reason to request that. That's what you should do. You shouldn't blindly believe me making any claims, but it is actually bad faith to skip over the step of acknowledgement of the point to
Okay,
then
the
tell
point
me I
would
need
be
to run.
valid if you're telling me that roads going east-west are significantly different because they add curves where there aren't any curves in the actual road, and they're doing that consistently on roads, not as in we can find one road where it's washed away and built again, but we're consistently finding wiggles that aren't there on absolutely, that could be a way they hide this east-west distance change.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
see that point, provided I get some evidence that it's true.
Sure.
Because as I said, I've traveled extensively. I've traveled all the way to Broken Hill and back, which is fairly out into the desert of Australia on some of the straightest roads you could ever imagine. And everywhere I went, Google Maps was centimeter perfect virtually.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
if I want a roadhouse and I've set my photo on it, and I'm like, I want to know if I'm going to make it to that roadhouse before I run out of fuel, or I want to say how many kilometers it is because Liz was obsessed with kilometers. I can tell it, and we turn up on the kilometer with no wiggles in the
Urbani's
road.
point was this, though, Eggshells.
Can we not interrupt either way, though, please? Because it's like, I can't even hear. Well, just let each other finish. Thank you. Brian, you can go ahead now. Eggshells yielded. I'm just saying, like, it's really sucks to hear people talk through each other. It's so stupid because it makes it take longer anyway.
I was doing mostly listening. Sorry, I'm gonna come in at the end. I'll probably come in a little early. Sorry, Eggshells. But no, I made with Urbani's his video. I made one like right before him about the. It wasn't that the roads are curving, and this was important to get in because I don't want people. It's the fact that all the highways and freeways in the South are straighter than shit.
Yep.
It's like crazy. And the further north you go, the curvier the roads get. Like it's almost like baffling. Like, damn, the further north I get, all these freeways and interstates and these long roads are getting curvier and curvier. Now, you could write off a few of them to just the land and all that, but in the South, all the freeways that go in between cities and states or countries, whatever they have down there, they straighten out. And that to me was strange in itself. It's like, but yeah, so Google Earth is gonna match what you're driving on and stuff. But the fact that all these roadways are straight, they add a lot of miles or take away a lot of miles with curvy roads and stuff, and they seem to be getting curvier and curvier in the north. I'll post a video that I made, and I showed a lot of these roads. Just
okay, wait, Brian, I'm confused because that wasn't the only claim. Like they specifically make the point that there are portions where the roads don't match the maps. So I'm not sure why you're saying that wasn't their point, because that was specifically the point, to the point where it actually shows some portions of the video time lapse of them driving next to the Google Maps, right? So are you saying I'm completely misremembering and making that up in my mind or something? Because I'm not.
Maybe I'm misremembering, dude.
So what you're saying sounds like it's also part of what he's making the point of, which is that there's a difference in, obviously, if you take the globe and you flatten it out and wrap it back around, right? Then you're going to have to stretch out and or shrink based on if you're in the north or the south.
Oh yeah. You're right too. He did show on the road and show like a distance between the signs and stuff. So yeah, I missed that point. So I'll say in addition to, like, the roads straighten out. That's weird. That every highway I could find, every interstate, was straighter than shit in the southern hemisphere. The further south you got,
that's totally normal.
Can I say something real quick?
Flat, largely uninhabited land, then you do the roads straight across it. America was the same. When you get to the flat bits, the roads go straight, the borders go straight, everything stays straight. It makes absolute sense. And it's not.
When you're on the
real
coast
quick, I just wanted to say on the.
Can we have the evidence?
I just wanted to say on the Google Maps bit, I can't count the number of times Google Maps, I don't know about the straightness thing, but I can't count the number of times Google Maps has either sent me to the wrong place, like literally on a road where it goes to the middle of a field, or something of that nature. Like I just can't even, like.
Sure. Place names, I would agree with that. Regularly, if you say, where's this place? It stuffs up, like to the point where I've gotten to multiple times where I get up to a locked gate and somebody's written on it on signs about 5 times, Google Maps is wrong, this is not the way to get to the state forest or something like that. I get that, but I mean where it says the roads are to get to places, it's insanely accurate because you don't even have to use where they draw the lines, right? Just switch that bit off, turn to the photo view, and you can see them, and regularly can find roads that aren't there. Like that, I would consider Google being so accurate. They've mapped roads they haven't even mapped yet, right? They've got them there.
Okay, but are you like specifically going out of your way to not see my point, right? I'm dropping the
asking
video
for
right now.
evidence. Thank you.
Dude, holy dude.
But
And
you
it's
can't
just
say,
like,
why aren't you accepting a point that I haven't shown you any evidence for yet?
oh,
You've already played
eggshells.
that game twice.
Do you
present the
realize how
evidence
you
then.
do you realize how you
You wanna
make
take a
conversation?
victory lap.
You're
Yeah, hold
still
on.
talking
Yeah,
through
we're not
me.
doing. Yeah, dude. Actually, just go ahead, please, dude. Please don't.
Okay.
I said no interruptions, dude. That's the most important thing right now.
I keep on making this point, but this is why I largely stopped partaking in conversations like this, okay? It is, again, more than reasonable to request evidence to back up someone's claim. I said I will happily go and track it down for you. I'm on a phone. I've already found the first video that's going to back up what I said, okay? But there is a different part of that where if we're having a conversation and someone's claiming something is impossible because of this evidence, which is we travel regularly, if I then say, wait a minute, have you considered these things? And I start to list off different ways that you could be wrong and believe that there's an accuracy with the globe model, but actually there isn't, then good faith would dictate you say, yes, I actually do see that you could drastically disguise distances this way. For example, the roads not being one-to-one accurately depicted on the Google Maps. Yes, you could absolutely disguise the distances discrepancies based on the travel time being significantly different due to jet streams, etc. Acknowledging the actual, like how your original claim of impossibility wasn't true because there are possible explanations is one thing. Then saying, okay, now that you've pointed out, good point, okay, touche. I shouldn't say it's technically impossible. Now we just need to see if that's actually true. What is the evidence for that thing? They're separate things, and you can see that if someone wants to have a good faith conversation, that like as soon as your original claim of impossibility is rebutted, if everyone, which is like there were like 4 or 5 all doing it, jumping in saying which hasn't provided shit, if you unanimously skip over the good faith acknowledgement part, it just makes the conversation suck, bro. I would really encourage people to be conscious of that because it's just annoying. It makes me not want to engage. So I'm going to drop the video. I think that they point out the map road discrepancy on Google Maps very early on in this video. There are many different videos from this guy discussing this concept.
I want to point out that I did say that was virtually a word-for-word rendition of what I said. I said, yes, they could hide evidence of Australia being twice as wide by having squiggles that aren't shown on maps. Everything you said is just a complete, yes, I will concede if this evidence is shown, it is good evidence that they're hiding the width of Australia. And then said, can you show the evidence? And you said, yeah, I'll get it. And then without yet producing it, you said, are you at least going to concede that it would... I've already done that. And now I got muted so that you could filibuster over it to complain about something I'd already done as if I hadn't.
No, that's not actually what... That's actually not...
Can anybody else... Does anybody
you
else
see how
remember
you
what I said?
immediately... I let you finish and you immediately started talking through me again?
You got muted for interrupting. I have to do it again, dude. It just has to go one at a time, dude. If someone's speaking, just not the time to speak. It's that simple. Even if you disagree or whatever.
So that isn't what actually originally happened. Each scenario that I was trying to point out the ideas, you were immediately just saying, no, that's not true, provide the evidence. And it's like, okay, fine, I understand the request for evidence. Even with the roads, there were 4 times that you interrupted responding, demanding that I show it because you know it's not true because they're perfectly accurate down to the centimeter, right? Without acknowledging the concept. Only once I pointed this point, I'm almost done. Only
but
once
you're
I
lying
point,
about what I've done. You're repeating
I'm
a lie about
almost
me.
done. Even when only once I pointed this idea out to you, did you say, which was hard to hear you because there was another flat earther or globe earther screaming from the sidelines, right? I do believe I heard you acknowledge, yes, this would possibly explain it. I want the evidence, but I had to point it out to you first. Okay. And the rest of the people in the room were all just screaming about the evidence. And I'm just making a meta point going forward, right? That good faith conversation would be addressing the ideas without this like weird gotcha energy of like, nuh-uh, gotcha, where's the evidence? Because, dude, sometimes I come in here when I'm driving. Sometimes I come in here when I'm doing something else, or I'm packing, or I'm cleaning, or I'm fixing my garage. And this idea, I can't engage in a conversation and bring stuff forth unless I'm on cue, ready to follow the commands of any contentious glober who demands I run errands for them, is exhausting. Okay? So I dropped the evidence for you already, though. So
I was just gonna say too, interruptions is actually also bad faith in general. I'm just saying in general, because like good faith is wanting to hear the person, hear them out, listen to their point, whereas like more on the side of bad faith is just because interrupting means that you don't really want to hear what they have to say, you don't really want to get to the root of it, or you have some other agenda to make it more chaotic. And I mean, eggshells, dude, I've had to mute you a bunch of times. I'm like making food, I'm doing stuff. It's really like in the future. I mean, dude, this is why like we may just not have people here who do this, because it's been a whole bunch of hassle. I'm not saying I don't want you here, but dude, at the very minimum, we should be able to hear back and forth the actual points being said. And I mean, even if someone's like, I mean, Witsit does go on for a longer amount. I know you have to be very patient, but he's saying a lot of information. It's all very relevant and pertinent. And also, if you need to give a little bit of a longer thing, you can as well if you have a longer point. But if you guys are going heated back and forth, but I'm just saying in the future, man, please, like, let's like the interruptions is the main issue. So
I think that's fair, unless the point is saying Harry Eggshells did X, and I'm saying no, that's the opposite of what happened, and what I was interrupting. I think fair enough. I do interrupt a fair bit, but on this point, somebody saying Eggshells didn't acknowledge the point, and I had. And I was taken to task for not acknowledging the point and being dishonest, and it's so disingenuous that Globers do this. While I had, and then to turn around and go, okay, you had, but it's still dishonest. It's you got to let somebody defend themselves, right? You can't just mute them while somebody else insults them. I mean, maybe
this once again isn't what
I'm
happened.
not in charge.
That isn't what happened. So first of all, I didn't even make it personal. Okay,
Let me
I just
ask
made
a simple question. Had I acknowledged the validity of the point and asked for the evidence, and then again, before providing the evidence, you re-demanded that I acknowledge the validity of the point, and then complained, took me to task for not acknowledging the validity of the point. Did that not happen?
No, but you're not going to let me know. Okay, you did eventually acknowledge the validity of the point only after I had to fight through multiple interruptions and 5 attempts to skip over it. Once I kept pointing it out, yes, you did eventually acknowledge the validity of the point, only to quickly stamp at the end of it that you demanded the evidence, okay? You did eventually do it. I only later made a meta point, not even personally pointed to you at that point, just to the room, because there was another Glober who jumped in and started screaming, "Witsit hasn't provided," and I'm just like, dude, do you guys not see how this just makes the conversation suck? I wasn't even talking about you specifically.
I think you need to play the conversation back. That's the opposite of what happened. I'd already acknowledged it, and then you complained again, and that's why you got such a solid rebuttal, because to my taste, I had already accepted the validity of the point and said, now we need evidence for it. And I think what happened is you might have forgot that had already happened and presumed, therefore, that it hadn't, but it absolutely already had.
No, but that could have been, let me jump into 2 seconds. That could have been clarified if there wasn't the interruptions. That's what's key. I agree with you, by the way. If you're trying to say someone muted you and insulted you, that's not the case. I specifically always mod for that not to happen, specifically. And it's very tough to do that because someone's interrupting and they're also insulting, and then it's like, it's tough. Or there's insults going back and forth. Point is that, dude, it's like, I didn't hear any egregious insults. If someone's very critically attacking your position or even pointing out certain components of it, I mean, in like a court case, you do have to listen to the person on the stand, like you can't just interrupt and say, no, you have to listen because people have to hear what's being said. So I'm just saying, I don't think you were muted and being insulted. I think that there were just a lot of points on the table. And if there is something that is like bad faith, for example, that's not necessarily an insult. It is a negative outlook on the person's character if someone's calling that out. But I mean, if it's done in a tasteful way within a debate form or in some fashion that kind of indicates where the blockage is or where the point is, I'm just saying if you hadn't have interrupted, you could have clarified things. Because I do agree, you did somewhat concede that you need to see the evidence, but you did it very quickly and then quickly went to other points. And I think he was maybe trying to clarify on that, and then there were the interruptions, and it went that way. So,
well, again, I'm just going to repeat, like, originally he did not acknowledge the validity in the point until I made that point. Okay, so
let's move on or play the tape back because this is just untrue.
Every time we play the tape back, I am vindicated. I have a good memory. So it's all good, though. We can move on. I already dropped the video.
I have a better memory, and I remember what Eggshell said is true.
Okay, do you want to bet $5,000?
I bet $5,000. Let's do it.
Here. Can you
Okay,
take
now
that twice? Can you take that
just
twice?
this.
10 grand total?
Yes, that whenever I first brought it up, you said, "Show me that." That was your initial response.
Yep. And then you asked me to concede. I conceded, and then you got upset at me for not conceding.
Okay, so
High
then,
rollers.
okay, so that was
let's
the,
do
wait,
it.
wait, time out.
Bet.
Wait, time out. Why would we make a bet when you just acknowledged that what I said happened? Okay, so we can move. My point was that originally, you skipped over acknowledging the validity of the point just immediately and actually interrupting to do so, demanding I provide the evidence. I said, I'm on the phone, I'll happily do so. Before that, can you at least acknowledge the point? Then at one point you did. Then I just made the meta point.
again.
Then I just made the meta point at the end to the whole room was like, hey, can we all be conscious of this on both sides? This happens on both sides. Right? Like if I'm bringing up a question, like I try to be good faith. If I ask, I don't see how this is possible on the globe. If a globe earther says, oh, well, this, and this can happen, or I'd be like, okay, I see what you're saying. You know, like, like where can I look into the evidence of that, or do you have it? Okay.
Right.
I was
So
just
you do
making a
ask for
point to the room.
evidence. It's fair. Yep.
Of course,
I'm
everyone
sorry.
should ask for evidence. No one should
Right.
just blindly
So we can
believe
move
anyone.
on.
Yes, but I've already dropped the evidence. And I was much, it was a way better conversation, a way better vibe when we were just talking about the possibility, because that's how it started, was like the possibility of the land layouts not being accurate, right? And there are many different ways this could happen and slip right underneath everyone's radar that no one thinks about. And so I was just listing off some of these things. Coincidentally, all of these things, or not so much coincidentally, I've actually found out that they exist. One of the ways is that we would never think about long duration trips. You just follow your map. You don't think about it. If there's a huge difference in the way that the road is laid out on Google Maps and the way it is in reality, over the course of a long trip, you could add or subtract a lot of distance just by an inaccurate portrayal of the roads. Okay? That is a fact. So everyone can be like, wow, I never thought of that. I guess technically we could have been traveling for decades thinking we know how long the land is because we know what the maps say. But in reality, there could just be a distinction between the actual roads and the actual maps. That's just one of many concepts. So that's why I'm trying to make my whole meta point at the beginning in response to you when you were asking me about how you said you respected that we make a definitive position or whatever, and you asked me what mine was, and I told you, and then we got into, I said my whole point was like, but I will say, I think people make the assumption erroneously that we know for sure that this continent layout is correct, and I don't believe that is the case. That was my entire point. Okay, and I said most people don't think that's true because I don't think they really think about all these other little things that play into why we believe that is the case.
Yeah, cool. I don't think this was that much of an infraction to deserve all this. Do you guys mind if we move on?
No, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm curious
there was
what
a
everyone
second
thinks
between the agreement and the evidence that justified this entire 30-minute long ramble out of conversation nonsense.
Yeah, and this is why I don't engage with like you guys a lot anymore. Yeah, but whatever, because it's like
because you get asked to provide evidence, and then it takes forever to you to provide it, and then the evidence you provide is an hour-long video.
No, no, it's because of what you just did there. How what you say because of, and then you just paint a whole fake, made-up narrative that isn't what I said at all. And then I have to spend the time to go back and forth. And then when I finally do, then you complain that I had to do it. Whereas I now realize that's just a waste of my time. There are people that actually respect my opinion or what I have to say or my time, and I don't have to engage in this world where these people think on the internet they can bully me and pretend they're so much superior to me that they can just waste my time.
Oh, boo-hoo, you're getting bullied.
Okay, what? And again, we can move on. So it is interesting for those actual truth seekers. It is an interesting concept that a plane could be flying and going much faster in the jet stream. Turns out the evidence shows that's the case, and that someone could be like people makes the claim, oh well, Antarctica or Australia is the same both ways, north and south and east and west. When you actually go look into the flights, you see, wait a minute, how come the flights east to west take longer? And then he said, well, it'd have to be twice as long. And I said, no, actually, if you consider that there are actual jet streams east to west, right? Well, then if they're going a little faster east to west and the actual flights are taking a little longer as well, when you combine those, then east to west could be significantly longer than it is north to south. So you could be a glober and acknowledge that these things are true. but that rarely happens, right? This is why flat Earth exists. Because when we go and we look in a little deeper and we find out these things, it's like the other side doesn't ever seem to have like a meeting in the middle where like, wow, yeah, dang, that's crazy. Or that side would have never even looked into it to find it in the first place. So then this solidifies flat earthers in their mind that they're correct because they're the only ones that actually further investigate and dig a little deeper and find some of these things that were kind of hidden. And then when we bring it back to the other side, they just don't acknowledge it, right? And then the next time we hear them bring up the point, they omit it. So if you really believe the Earth's a globe, you believe flat Earth is dangerous or it's incorrect or whatever, kind of going about the conversation that way is the worst thing you could do because you're actually making more flat earthers.
Yeah, but everyone gets to hear the points, so that's, I mean, people that are listening get able to hear them as well. So, and then on the kind of world stage, as it were, that's the thing is that like being able to use tactics on whatever side, I think is more and more so coming to an end, because as things become more more widely kind of accessed by more people, everybody knows that those kinds of things are like remedial versus what the actual information is. So yeah, being able to just get the points out, and even if the immediate people are not going to receive it in a certain way, maybe that are in the discussion, others are able to still address it themselves or in their own ways. So I think it's just like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like the truth wins no matter if there's resistance in different areas. Like, the paradigms can still shift even though there's a ton of resistance, and usually even the resistance kind of fuels the shifting. So ironically, it's like, in a way, I mean, in different ways. I hear you on some of these people that have certain ways of going about it. Because, yeah, it was super chill until it went off the rails there. It can be contentious, but also very chill in the conversation if the people are respectful. And then the good faith thing, is a huge factor, because good faith, that you have an earnest interest in actually knowing their point, understanding their point, having valid rebuttals, and keeping everything in an order of actual honest exchange makes a huge difference. And then in addition, like the cordiality, because either way, whatever the person who's in the discussion, even if there's contention, whatever they may walk away with, but they're really only one person. And if there's hundreds of thousands or however many hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands at some point that are listening, then it's like, that's where the efficacy of the communication comes in, is like everybody who's also listening and the larger kind of communities as things, as well, the science communities and so on, where the key is, rather than just the person that is opposing, because there's always going to be the resistance, and it seems like that's kind of part of the fuel of the fire in a sense, in terms of when there's transformation and change, especially with something as big as the actual Earth itself and the cosmology we've been told.
Dude, if someone shares screen and plays a video, are you able to play it on the stream?
Yeah, I could pull it up.
We don't have to do that, but I'm gonna, or at least I'll timestamp here, because I haven't watched this in, I don't know, a long time, since I just went and looked it up. I think it's like, dude was complaining about how the video is an hour long. Like, it's at the very beginning of the video though, so, and it's just like a short period of time.
He also complained about how long it took you to go get it. That was just ridiculous. Who was that, by the way, so I can make a note?
Which was like a couple minutes.
I know. That's why I was like, "Wow, I thought he was joking." Do y'all know who that was?
I don't know. Yeah, I already muted him. This guy Mez, he would have just ruined the entire live stream. So I just pre-muted him. He had that whole whatever that vibe is that he was trying
that's
to do.
Mez for you. Yeah, that's what he
It
does.
sounded like someone who comes here all the time. I was like, I can't believe saying that, because Witsit went and got it immediately, and he was like, "It took you a long time, and it's an hour long." I mean,